What is the chance of surviving after falling from the 5th floor? Zhao Yunqing didn't know, she didn't come alive anyway. When looking at the woman lying on the ground with a disheveled hair and being watched from a third-party perspective, she knew that she was dead and upright. To tell the truth, he died too unjustly, so he saved his life for the mobile phone that slipped off the hook. She was about to abandon Sun Lu and start her life again, but this juncture came to an end. Is this really owed to him in the previous life? Zhao Yunqing couldn't understand, but it didn't matter whether he understood or not. Someone called the police, and soon there was a police car whizzing over, carrying the rumored woman who had died of love into the car. It's really not a martyrdom, Zhao Yunqing retorted helplessly in his heart, but unfortunately no one could hear it. Because he was completely dead, after confirming his identities, his family members were taken directly to the crematorium, where they were put in a temporary mourning hall for one night, and the next day it became ashes. Zhao Yunqing watched those familiar faces crying in sorrow. Maybe it was already a spiritual relationship, she didn't even feel anything. Suddenly, the burial ceremony went very rough. After half a day passed, the originally noisy cemetery instantly became quiet, and the people left one by one after they finished the incense. Zhao Yunqing floated alone beside his grave, not knowing what to do with it. The world after death is a bit boring, to be honest, and there is no need to reincarnate. How long will she be a lonely ghost? I tried to float elsewhere, but it seemed that there were restrictions. Don't even think about the world 10 meters away. Faced with the green hills for 3 days, finally another person greeted. A man who never appeared from beginning to end after he died, Sun Lu. Zhao Yunqing is not disappointed. He has been in love with this man for more than 10 years. Without love, there is always some other affection, right? I'm all dead, and I don't even want to send it off. But forget it, it's all like this, and I still care about what these do. It's just that it's been a few days, so what are you going to do? His beautiful face wouldn't look good. The closer it gets, the more ugly it is. It is a bit hideous. Zhao Yunqing is a little worried, afraid that he will smash his own grave. Isn't it? No matter how bad the friendship is, this is not the place, right? Sun Li wore black, his usual meticulous hair would lie on his forehead softly, his cheeks seemed thinner, his face was more distinct, and his clear and dark eyes stared at the photo on the tombstone. The photo was frozen when Zhao Yunqing was 26 years old, with a grin at the corner of his mouth, vaguely like Xiao Qiang, who could live well no matter how hard he was hit. However, it died. As soon as he walked away with his front foot, the man jumped off the building with his back foot. Are you blaming me? Sun Lu said, his voice hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken for a long time. Zhao Yunqing floated across from him, showing a sigh. No wonder, anyway, he has been hit a lot, it doesn't matter anymore. Sun Lu said, are you retaliating against me? Because you are dismissive of you, and because you don't look down on you, so I just die 100, let me become a sinner, and I will be pointed out in this life. I've lost my life. Zhao Yunqing was stunned, staring at the vague hatred on his face and couldn't recover. Why don't you die secretly if you want to die like this? You have to die after seeing me again? What is it now? What do you tell me? Yes, I just hate you. I hate you for being indifferent. If you say you like it, you can just turn your head and pretend that it has never happened. You have a good mentality, but you are really capable. How affectionate is the pretense, actually. Sun Lu, known as the reticent prince, had more conversations than ever before, and his cold temperament disappeared without a trace, becoming irritable and lacking restraint. Sun Lu had never seen such a gaffe, and Zhao Yunqing was surprised and injured. I never saw him speak so harshly before his death, but he became worse after he died. Isn't it too much? Even if it is a spiritual body, Zhao Yunqing also feels a bit of pain. Is it so painful to be liked by her? How disgusted and scolded after death? Zhao Yunqing frowned and listened to Sun Lu's complaint silently there, feeling that he was wrong even to die. Sun Lu cursed, and suddenly out of control swept the degraded sacrifice to the side of the tombstone. After a murmur of ping pong pong, except for a few leaves, it was originally barely clean in front of the tombstone. An instant mess. Is this really coming to smash the grave? Zhao Yunqing lowered his head silently, an urge to go to the grave next door. I'm dead, why bother? Zhao Yunqing said helplessly. Sun Lu, who was on the verge of mania, was taken aback for a moment, his expression filled with blankness and a little fragility. Zhao Yunqing didn't notice, and continued to whisper there, anyway, you are already free, and I won't pester you anymore. Don't smash my grave. It's awkward to say it. Zhao Yunqing. Sun Lu suddenly yelled, get out of here. Zhao Yunqing suddenly didn't hear it. The spirit body began to become transparent somehow, and she looked at her hand in surprise. Sun Lu's, who was opposite her, started to yell like crazy, and his distorted and hideous face turned into a pig liver color because of excitement or anger, but no matter how hoarse he was, he couldn't get any response. How could you die? Sun Lu stumbled, knelt on the ground, and continued in a trembling or even desperate voice, I don't believe it. Zhao Yunqing was awakened by a kick. When I opened my eyes, I saw a fancy room with pink as the keynote, with a lot of girlish dolls, and clothes with hanging tags everywhere. It was very familiar. It was the room where she used to go. Drink, how about this one for me? She turned her head and saw a little girl with a ponytail, her face was pretty clean, her nose and lips were nice, but her eyes were not long enough, she had thin single eyelids, and there were so many white eyes, and she felt a little gloomy in her lack of consciousness. I'm talking to you, can this be given to me? She urged dissatisfiedly. Zhao Yunqing Yugulo sat up from the bed, swept lightly around, and said, okay, take it as you like. She was so happy that she finally picked out 3 of them. When she arrived at the door, she turned her head and said, by the way, I have done my English homework. If you can't find it later, you can ask me. Zhao Yunqing let out an and watched her disappear at the door. After a moment of silence in the bedroom, Zhao Yunqing got up and went around the room, found a mobile phone, and glanced at the date on it. Good guy, actually went back to 12 years ago. This year, Zhao Yunqing was 14 years old, at the age of high school, and he probably hadn't touched Sun Lu before this meeting. After Zhao Yunqing recovered from the unthinkable, he immediately felt that his hair was going to be bald. She is not a material for studying, it is not that she has a bad brain and simply don't want to learn, so she has a very poor foundation, and she was a bottom in school in her previous life. The little girl just now was named Shi Tingting, the daughter of Zhao Zhenjiang's current girlfriend. In my impression, these 2 mothers and daughters lived in Zhao's house for several years. The Zhao family's conditions are quite good. Shi Tingting's daughter transferred to Zhao Yunqing's school with her mother. The 2 were still in the same class. At that time, Zhao Yunqing's homework was all plagiarized from her, although there were few correct questions. Zhao Yunqing sighed secretly and had to go to school again. I don't know if I can work harder in this life to be a midstream. In the evening, golden afterglow fell outside the window. Zhao Yunqing groped around the room with emotion, when the door was knocked again. Shi Tingting got into a head and said, let's go, I'm going to eat. The 2 walked downstairs in tandem. Zhao Yunqing looked at the back of the young and beautiful girl indifferently. He had put on a floral skirt that he had just taken, and the ponytail was thrown vigorously behind him. Shi Tingting doesn't look good, but her figure is okay, and she should be convex at a young age. In addition, with a little effort in dressing, she also attracts the eyes of some young boys. Unlike the blessed Zhao Yunqing, Shi Tingting has to work hard if she wants to shine. Therefore, whenever anyone who is blind shows off to her, she will show off everywhere, especially Zhao who lives under the same roof. Drink clear here. At that time, Zhao Yunqing had a simple mind, and played with her very well. He felt that this person was acceptable except for a small advantage. But it's a pity that Zhao Yunqing's Taoism is still a little shallow. This young lady not only wanted to dig her man in her last life, but also directly emptied her father with her mother. It's all tears. Since this time the machine is restarted, Zhao Yunqing has to think of a way to send the mother and daughter away. There are already people sitting at the table, a young woman with heavy makeup and charming charm, Shi Tingting, and her mother Zhou Zhiying. A stalwart middle-aged man, Zhao Yunqing, and her father, Zhao Zhengyang. The two children, one on the left and the other right, just sat firmly. Zhou Zhiying smiled and looked at Shi Tingting with a little kindness, and said, "Tingting, the monthly exam is about to be taken. How is the review?" "Shi Tingting, I'm doing questions every day. Do you have the confidence to do a better test?" "Don't worry, mother." Zhao Yunqing had a toothache. In the 3 years of high school, she carefully copied Shi Tingting, and the two of them never made the bottom 10. Destined to be crooked, pretend to be a good student. Zhou Zhiying put chopsticks and dishes into Zhao Yunqing's bowl again, pretending to be concerned, "Drinking it all? Haven't you been out to play lately? You have to hurry up." Zhao Zhenjiang's gaze also moved over, his face still a bit serious. Zhou Zhiying Yu Guang glanced at it, and his chest was filled with a smile, but he said, "Is the money enough?" The smile on Zhou Zhiying's face suddenly collapsed. Zhao Zhengyang is wealthy, and he doesn't care about what his daughter can learn. He has always only cared about her eating, drinking, and having fun. This is really amazing. However, the word money always poked Zhou Zhiying's care. This woman pretended to be kind and surrounded Zhao Zhengyang. The biggest purpose was money. Zhao Yunqing smiled secretly in his heart, and said, "Almost, it can last a while." Zhou Zhiying raised her eyes to look at the other side. Shi Tingting was pouting dissatisfiedly. She followed up and said, "Where is Tingting? How was the pocket money spent last month?" Zhao Zhengyang raised his eyebrows. "Last month?" Shi Tingting climbed along the rope and quickly said, "I spent almost the same a few days ago, but I didn't spend a lot of money." Zhou Zhiying suddenly looked distressed. "Why don't you tell me if the money is gone? Look at the clothes you are wearing. There are only a few things going back and forth. If you go out, such a poor classmate should laugh at you." Shi Tingting put on a funeral expression. Jiao Didi said in a sensible manner, "It's fine if the clothes can be worn anyway, I'm fine." Zhao Yunqing couldn't listen anymore. He tapped the edge of the bowl with his chopsticks, and then attracted the eyes of the three of them, and said, "Are my 3 clothes with hanging tags feeding the dog?" Shi Tingting. For so many years, Zhao Yunqing's grades have been poor, but his words and deeds have not been sharp, and it will not make people too difficult to come to Taiwan. As soon as I said this today, the indoor air inevitably stagnates. There was something in these words, obviously aimed at their mother and daughter. Zhou Zhiying's expression was a bit ugly. Shi Tingting also looked like a duck whose neck was pinched. She opened her mouth to say something, but Zhou Zhiying's wink stopped her. Zhao Zhengyang is just this one daughter, who is always very precious. She still dare not be too presumptuous. At the end of the meal, Zhao Zhengyang each gave a sum of allowance, and the matter was over. Zhao Yunqing returned to the room and took a shower to rest. She still had a lot of things to sort out, and she needed time to be quiet. It's a pity that someone won't let her be at peace. Shi Tingting opened the door and walked in, looking at her complainingly, and said, "What did you mean just now? If you don't want to give me the clothes, just say, why embarrass me in front of an adult?" They have been together for a while, and it is not uncommon for them to pick up small things like this. Zhao Yunqing has no worries about buying snacks, and has always maintained an indifferent attitude. Shi Tingting naturally took it for granted. She felt that Zhao Yunqing was a series of personal stupid money. The two were not tired of getting along with each other. How did she know that this one suddenly came today? she had the illusion of being betrayed. Seeing that Zhao Yunqing was silent, Shi Tingting continued to speak, "You are willing, but now you bite again, making me so greedy for cheap, are you too much?" Zhao Yunqing's hair hasn't dried yet, so he will be scratching it with his hands. Shi Tingting's anger that had been reluctantly suppressed came up at once, curling her eyebrows and exclaimed, "What are you pretending to be dumb? You really think I'm a bully, don't you?" "No," Zhao Yunqing said lightly, "you really are not good at bullying." "Shi Tingting, you are." With a pop, someone opened the door and walked in. Zhou Zhiying looked hurriedly, grabbed Shi Tingting who was in trouble, lowered her voice and said, "What are you calling at night? Go back to bed." "No, Mom." "Go." Zhou Zhiying couldn't help but dragged Shi Tingting out. When the door was closed, she turned around and smiled stiffly and said to Zhao Yunqing, "Yunqing, you go to bed early, don't sleep too late." The door closed. Shi Tingting still wanted to talk unwillingly in the corridor, but Zhou Zhiying stopped her with a warning look. "It wasn't until I entered the bedroom that I educate my daughter and said, you shouted so loudly that the whole house heard it. Zhao Yunqing is your Uncle Zhao's daughter. You fell out with her. Can Uncle Zhao still see you?" Shi Tingting was stunned. Zhou Zhiying stroked her hair and said, "Tingting, we can't go back and endure hardship anymore, so you have to learn to be patient, so that the entire Zhao family will be ours." Shi Tingting thought that her father, who would become violent when she was drunk, shuddered suddenly and nodded, saying she knew. The next day, Zhao Yun got up early in the morning and went to school with his school bag on his back. The two mothers and daughters were just like seeing a ghost, and the nanny also surprised that this lady who had been stuck with the bed for a long time actually had such a diligent time. Zhao Yunqing was in a good mood. Looking back at the aunts who took care of him more than 10 years ago, they were very kind and greeted them enthusiastically. After that, I picked up a few pieces of toast, blew it out like the wind, and climbed into the car. Zhou Zhiying tore off the omelette in Shi Tingting's mouth and swept the people out. The driver finally didn't have to rush for fear that they would be late this day, and sent them slowly and steadily to the most expensive private school in the city. The two were in the same class and walked in one after the other. Shi Tingting was educated by Zhou Zhiying last night. Although she was unwilling, she still whispered to Zhao Yunqing in order to change her life. Zhao Yunqing didn't want to give her a long stay in Japan, and didn't say much from the beginning to the end, even perfunctory and unqualified. A child of this age still has a lot of face. Shi Tingting turned his head and secretly hummed, and didn't bother to talk to her. At the door of the classroom, Zhao Yunqing had forgotten where he was seated. There were a lot of students chatting on the balcony on the second floor. Zhao Yunqing was carrying a school bag, so he was there. A few minutes later, a person appeared at the corner of the stairs. He was wearing a red and white school uniform, with naturally curly hair combed into a ponytail and tied behind his head. A chubby body with big eyes and a round nose. He was eating a bag of toast in his hand. Cheerful. Do-na, Zhao Yunqing's table mate, don't remember where she is still impressed. In the last life, Zhao Yunqing hadn't talked to her much. No matter how expensive private schools are, there are always a few students from ordinary families who come in based on academic performance. Do-na is one of them. No other characteristic, that is, she is eager to learn. Even if Zhao Yunqing talks to her, she can get a handful of responses. She is very acquainted and doesn't bother others. When he got to the position, Zhao Yunqing flipped through the book, but he didn't understand anything. The gurgling characters were just like the heavenly book. Originally, the foundation was not solid, but now after more than 10 years, the barely supported framework has also been scattered. In class, Zhao Yunqing listened to the clouds in the mist. After a few days, there was nothing to gain. "Hey, why haven't you been in and out with Zhao Yunqing recently? Wasn't the relationship very good before?" a classmate asked Shi Tingting secretly. Although the two of them were still going to school in the same car, they barely talked much anymore. Shi Tingting said it was better, it didn't help. The face was dumped time and time again. She now looks very uncomfortable with Zhao Yunqing. He didn't say anything, but the disdainful expression on his face was clear at a glance. Some classmates gossiping, "What's the matter? You two quarreled." Someone snarled in Zhao Yunqing's direction and said, "Is it because Zhao Yunqing has suddenly become positive and motivated? No longer going with you?" Shi Tingting chicks and said, with her mind, "It's useless to learn." "Okay, it's not just Ting. We talk to her and we don't care about it. If we want to learn, let people learn. Let's play with ours." "That's right, how about going to sing together this weekend? There is a handsome guy coming over." Shi Tingting turned her head and asked, "One Chinese?" "Who?" Another said, "I know one of the handsome guys in number 1 middle school." Shi Tingting interface, Sun Lu. Sun Lu's handsome is not an ordinary handsome, anyway, several nearby schools have heard of his name, there are not a few who are fascinated by him, and they are not only handsome, but also have good academic performance. I don't know if it's him, but we can still look forward to it. Shi Tingting had glanced at Sun Lv, this would make her heart plop, and she was really looking forward to it. Yingke High School is divided into small week and big week, this time it is big week, you can take 2 days off. Whether they are living on campus or day-to-day students, they are all excited as if they were beaten up. Zhao Yunqing is currently making up for evil, and it is still the knowledge content of the 3rd grade. She asks Zhao Zhengyang to help her find a makeup teacher. "My daughter is willing to study hard and improve every day, and she is naturally happy to be an old man." However, Zhao Yunqing is not weak in a partial discipline, but paralyzed by the entire army, and wants to make up for it is a little impossible to start. Zhao Zhengyang, who didn't care about her schoolwork, was shocked, but it didn't matter. Wouldn't it be enough to find a teacher for every subject? Zhao Yunqing nodded in agreement, raised his spirits to study, and filled his time every night. She is also going to the bookstore spontaneously 2 days on the weekend. The Zhao family assigned a driver to the 2 children. They used to enter and exit at the same time. One driver is enough. Now one of them has changed his evil and returned to righteousness. When the direction changes, the driver suddenly becomes in a dilemma. Tang Anfu has been working in Zhao's family for many years, and it is natural to look at Zhao Yunqing as he grew up. Shi Tingting stepped on small leather shoes, a beautiful dress, and a small satchel, with fresh light makeup on her face. Her hair was specially curled into big waves with a curling iron, and she was carefully dressed up from head to toe, but the driver wanted her to be a pigeon. The face that was pretty good under the makeup concealed suddenly became ugly. In any case, they are all the daughters of the eldest, Xinhuan. Tang Anfu compromised and said, "How about I'll pick you up again after I finish drinking it? Then I'm late, do I make an appointment with someone?" Shi Tingting looked at them with an upset and irritable expression, "How difficult it is for me to do this." Zhao Yunqing carried his school bag and was full of study plans, and didn't want to waste time tangling on this matter. She said, "Uncle Tang, you will see her off, I will take a taxi, and just pick me up in the afternoon." Tang Anfu frowned, feeling inappropriate. Zhao Yunqing waved his hand and left happily. Shi Tingting's complexion was a little better now, watching Zhao Yunqing's back hurry away, she felt a sense of excitement, thinking that this person was just as good as it was in a heated confrontation. She got into the car happily and turned to remind Tang Anfu who was still standing there. The car moved forward steadily all the way. Shi Tingting leaned back in the back seat, texting and chatting with people in a happy mood. After arriving at the destination, she got off the car and told Tang Anfu, "Uncle Tang, come and pick me up in the evening." Tang Anfu said, "When the time comes, watch and drink a few times, if there is a conflict, there is no way." Shi Tingting frowned and wanted to say something. Tang Anfu closed the car window first and turned away. Cut, what a drove! Shi Tingting rolled her eyes. There are a lot of people in the bookstore. In the reading area, students who are immersed in writing and painting are excluded, and there are parents who accompany young children in various enlightenments. Zhao Yunqing found this mathematical analysis, and started looking at it in a corner. To understand step by step, my mind is filled with various characters. How to calculate this angle? What is this quadrant? Zhao Yunqing is almost too big each. The low chatter from the table next door came at this time. I heard that he is going to transfer school, just next month. Isn't that fast? Yes, such a seductive handsome guy, I won't see it anymore. Bai Ying is about to cry secretly, since the beginning of school, Sun Luha is terrible. It's not just her crying. When Zhao Yunqing heard the name, his back was subconsciously jerked, as if he was severely poked. She turned her head and looked over. Two girls in school uniforms were sitting at the next table, with black rimmed glasses on their big faces, and all her hair tied into a bunch of neat ponytails. She looked like a good-looking baby who was obedient to the teacher. The two sighed with emotion, but Zhao Yunqing grew hairy as he listened. Even if she was just Sun Lu's classmate, she couldn't help but want to hide. Collected all the things on the table, and quickly moved to a place. Zhao Yunqing stayed in the bookstore for a day, and even ordered takeout burgers for lunch. When he was about to leave in the evening, he accidentally knocked over the half cup of milk tea left, and his white shirt instantly became horrible. She drew a paper and wiped it meaningfully, and then drove to a nearby shopping mall. Before the Zhao family went downhill, Zhao Yunqing's life was even said to be extravagant. In her eyes, money was never money, but paper that could buy all kinds of things she wanted. She had nothing. Concept of money. So at that time, some things were done to hurt one's self-esteem, such as buying a bunch of famous brands and sending them to the school to Sun Lu with great fanfare. The sender has no thoughts, and the person who has been shown up may think it is trampled on. Therefore, Zhao Yunqing has always been pure kindness to Sun Lu, but Sun Lu always uses money to shake his face. I entered a relatively ordinary shopping mall. The clothing stores here often offer discounts, and the prices that come down are basically acceptable to ordinary people. Zhao Yunqing entered a very popular women's clothing store, picked a shirt to change, put the dirty in the bag, and walked out after closing the bill. There are still makeup classes in the evening, and she is considering whether to go back to eat or solve it outside, and then go directly. Suddenly someone behind her slammed her hard, followed by the loud cry of the little boy. Zhao Yunqing quickly turned around and saw a little boy lying on the ground and howling and crying. The key thing was that his mouth was full of blood, which was obviously knocked to his mouth. Come, get up first. Zhao Yunqing leaned over to carry him. The boy was very angry, his hands were like a hot wheel, and Zhao Yunqing was not allowed to touch him at all. Those passing by began to stop and watch. The relatives of the boy also rushed over quickly. She was a girl who was not a few years older than Zhao Yunqing. Her face was as clean as Yangliu in the early spring, her brows and eyes were supple, and she felt very comfortable. She helped the little boy up, patted him on his clothes, looked worriedly at the blood-stained mouth, and whispered, "Didn't I tell you not to run? There are too many people in the mall, and you run into people like this. If you don't say it, it's easy to get hurt. You don't listen." The child was wronged and kept crying wow wow wow. Zhao Yunqing stood on the side like a wood, facing this gentle and watery girl. He didn't know how to react for a while. Sun Lu's white moonlight has all appeared here, so can Sun Lu be far away? Zhao Yunqing wanted to turn his head and ran away, holding back tightly. Go to the hospital and check it. She said dryly, I'll pay for the medical expenses. Bai Yueguang's name is Ren Shui, and as the name suggests, it is as clean as the first snow in winter. Even if he was Zhao Yunqing's #1 rival in love in his previous life, Zhao Yunqing still felt that she could not hate her. No, I'll take him there by myself. I'm so sorry that the kid ran into you mischievously. Zhao Yunqing, it's okay. Ren Shui smiled apologetically at her, and then dragged the child out of the encirclement. A spectator kindly reminded that the child was injured a bit serious, and should hurry to see it. She nodded politely, indicating that she knew it. The crowd gradually dispersed, and Zhao Yunqing stood there, watching them approach the exit when a long figure came out from the nearby bakery to join them. Zhao Yunqing turned around quickly and ran away. The makeup classes are still in full swing. Zhao Yunqing is still struggling to learn, but he thinks he has made some progress. In math class that day, the teacher asked questions and answered questions, and there was a roster on the podium, and she pointed people directly. Unfortunately, Zhao Yunqing was hit. For someone who has just consolidated her knowledge in the 3rd grade, any high school questions are still difficult for her. Find the value range of 2 points in the known data. Dozens of eyes in the class were cast on her. Someone whispered, Zhao Yunqing must have worked so hard recently to figure it out, right? This subject is not too difficult. If you can't figure it out after working so hard, then I advise her not to learn it. Shi Tingting chuckled lightly and said, I work so hard every day, and what I'm studying is junior high school knowledge, okay? Everyone was shocked. Are you real? Are you kidding me? What are you doing to lie to you? Look at it. A group of people stared at Zhao Yunqing in a subtle mood, faintly hoping that she could make a fool of herself. Zhao Yunqing lived up to the expectations. He really didn't know the answer, so he could only examine a question. The other digital symbols were familiar to her, but she didn't know them at all. I am preparing to answer honestly. Someone suddenly clicked the table, and Zhao Yunqing glanced at it and saw the small note that Do Na handed over, which said. Zhao Yunqing read it out. Yes, please sit down. The topic may be simple, and she didn't even ask her to go up and write the process, so she started to talk down. Someone ran into Shi Tingting, you are talking nonsense. Really? Shi Tingting was anxious, why am I lying to you? I'm really studying junior high school knowledge. Cut. Shi Tingting's face was a little ugly. She turned her head and glanced at Zhao Yunqing, who was sitting there obediently. It was a hell. She couldn't even do this question. How could Zhao Yunqing know that this person's brain is obviously not as good as hers? After class, Zhao Yunqing turned to look at Do Na from time to time. Do Na, who was immersed in the question, finally gave her a look and said, what are you doing? Zhao Yunqing smiled and whispered, nothing, thank you just now. Do Na pursed her lips. Although she knew that Zhao Yunqing had poor grades and had always been an idiot before, but she has been working hard recently. Let's not say how the effect is. Anyway, she is looking at the seriousness of. If you want to learn well at the same table, there is no reason not to help, right? Do Na said, ask me if you don't understand, I can teach you if I have time. Zhao Yunqing unexpectedly widened his eyes, and then thanked him. After that, Zhao Yunqing had more contact with Do Na, but she was not an ignorant person, but Do Na would not disturb her when she was busy. In this way, the time quickly slipped to the monthly exam, and the examination room was ranked according to the results, so Zhao Yunqing was placed in the 8th class, with a bunch of scumbags all around. I used to have a lot of conversations with these scumbags, but now they are a little bit antagonistic. Zhao Yunqing seemed to be sitting there in isolation, but it didn't matter. There was a 26-year-old soul hidden in this body, and he was already disdainful of collaborating with them. Hey, Zhao Yunqing, where are you going to take the exam this time? Another said, is the goal to be in the top 10 in the class? Someone couldn't help laughing, and another jokingly said, what's so funny about this? People are chasing with good students every day. It's not normal to raise the rankings. Only Shi Tingting knew this was still an embroidered pillow with rotten straw, but she pretended to say, what are you doing? Yinking has learned it at home in the middle of the night. How many of you can do it? Wow! It's so late to learn, my god, it's not just the top 10, it's the top 3. Everyone burst into laughter. Zhao Yinking was memorizing words with a small notebook that he could carry around. This put the notebook in his pocket, and suddenly got up to meet a group of meaningful sights and walked forward. When I got to Shi Tingting's side, I stopped suddenly, tugged at her, leaned over to her ear and said, "Do you want to send someone under the fence anymore? I don't mind sweeping your mother and daughter out." Shi Tingting's face froze, her eyes flashed with obvious panic and fear. Why she suddenly forgot that Zhao Zhengyang still loved this daughter so much that she had to live on the Zhao family, and now she was ridiculing the Zhao family's daughter in the palm of her hand. A burst of cold sweat hit his back. Zhao Yinking stood up straight, stared at her coldly, and said, "Don't worry about me in the future." She turned around and went out of the classroom to the bathroom. The circle was quiet for a few seconds, and a classmate cut disdainfully and said, "What is it, Ting Ting? What did she tell you? Did she threaten you?" Shi Tingting turned her head with an ugly expression, and said, "Leave her alone, think about how to deal with the exam." In the evening, Zhou Zhiying saw that Shi Tingting was not in a good mood, so he called people over for questioning. When Shi Tingting talked about the daytime incident, Zhou Zhiying pulled her face and said coldly, "Send someone under the fence. I want her to know what it means to send someone under the fence. We don't have the last name Zhao, and she is right." Zhou Zhiying turned her head, looked at her only daughter with a grieved expression, touched her cheek, and said in a slow tone, "Remember, even if we are not named Zhao, everything here belongs to us. This will happen sooner or later." In the luxurious master bedroom, Zhao Zhengyang was lying on the bed with Zhou Zhiying lying on his chest, half covered with a thin blanket, faintly ambiguous, and the air was full of the smell of love after love. A good time to formally blow the pillow wind after the intercourse. Zhou Zhiying glanced at Zhao Zhengyang, who was full of satisfaction, and said, "Ting Ting has not been in a good mood these past few days." Zhao Zhengyang said yes, asking meaningfully, "What's the matter? It seems that two girls are quarreling. It used to be a good relationship between entering and leaving together." Zhao Zhengyang said, "Don't you also enter and leave at the same time? Now I am in and out of the car at the same time." Ting Ting said that she talked to Yinking several times, but Yinking ignored her and didn't know where she was offended. "Although we live here, I am a bit wronged. It's nothing, but I don't want Ting Ting to follow people's faces. I'm just such a daughter." Zhou Zhiying said that she was getting more and more aggrieved, and then she was about to cry, "I owe her too much. The most basic life can't be given to her." Zhao Zhengyang patted her on the shoulder and coaxed, "You think too much, and you have a clear heart. Maybe you are thinking about other things. Don't worry too much about children's affairs. Maybe tomorrow, friendship will be better than anyone else." Zhou Zhiying bit her lip, observed Zhao Zhenjiang's face, and then said, "You always speak for your daughter." She said she was going to get up and wash. Zhao Zhengyang grabbed her, well, I know, I will find time to talk about her, and let her take away Missy's temper." He bowed his head and kissed Zhou Zhiying's smooth shoulder, and whispered, "Satisfied, right? Humph. Recent projects have been done well, I will give you some money tomorrow, go to the little sisters to play and relax." Zhou Zhiying showed a smile again. At the end of the monthly exam, the results will be released the next day, and the ranking will follow. Zhao Yinking swept his name from bottom to top, finally stepped out of the bottom 10 and stayed at the 11th bottom. The progress is fair, although not great, but Zhao Yinking is very satisfied. With a smile, she went to find Dou Na's name, which was impressively in the top 3 position. Normally, people are originally college bullies. Zhao Yinking turned his head and said, "Congratulations, you are on the second." Dou Na curled her eyebrows, her chubby face was not happy, and said, why do you rank so low? It's okay, it's already improved, just work harder next time. Do-na, this kind of effort will have to rise by 10. She hadn't spoken yet, someone chuckled beside her. Wow, Zhao Yinking's suation actually fell into the 41st position like this. Is it possible for us to have a balance in our hearts for pure play every day? Ha ha ha, if I have half the energy of her, not to mention the top 3, there will always be the middle and upper class. It means that anyone of me who has never done homework is better than her. The brain is really different from person to person. The ridiculed group of people all have a good relationship with Shi Tingting. They had a good relationship with Zhao Yinking before, and I didn't feel how bad they were at that time. Now I turn my head and look again. It's really a bunch of rubbish. Do-na frowned and glanced at Zhao Yinking. Zhao Yinking, it's okay, let's go, I'll recite the vocabulary. After the monthly exam was over, the buzzing news in the school was about transfer students. Sun LV of number 1 middle school, with his outstanding grades and outstanding appearance, is simply famous. Hearing that he has the intention of coming for talents, the school specially reduced his tuition. When will this handsome guy come over? At the beginning of the month, at the middle of the month, and at the end of the month, it was mentioned. Zhao Yinking shrank in his seat, ignoring things outside the window, and studying silently at his own discretion. Early on Wednesday morning, due to diarrhea, Zhao Yinking went to the toilet as soon as he arrived at school, and finally hurried to the classroom under the bell. The classroom, which used to be noisy, sank into silence ahead of time today. The head teacher brought a new classmate to stand in front of the podium, making an introduction. With a tall and handsome profile like a bamboo, he turned his head to look at the movement before hearing the movement. The soft bangs were placed in front of the eyebrows, and the eyes were dark and heavy, like a quiet lake bottom with a tranquility of retreat. The delicate features are as beautiful as handicrafts. The temperament is slightly cold and don't disturb you. It was because he was so good looking that Zhao Yinking couldn't help but sink in at first sight. At that time, she tried every means to please the big boy, regardless of the contemptuous eyes around her, thinking that it was not a wrong thing to like someone, she just liked him, so she went to be nice to him, and didn't think there was anything wrong. This persistence lasted for 12 years, watching the young boy grow into a stable man, even though he still has no shadow of himself in his life. It hurts too much. After he died once, Zhao Yinking couldn't even think about it. She turned a blank face and quickly turned her head away. The head teacher frowned and asked, "Zhao Yinking, what's the matter with you? What are you doing, and you will be late? I have diarrhea. Go back and sit down quickly." Zhao Yinking hurriedly trot over. The closer he got, the more nervous he became. The slender figure of the big boy in his sight almost instantly arrived in front of him. For some reason, Zhao Yinking was a little inexplicably scared now when he saw him. Maybe it was because of too many distracting thoughts and too messy footsteps. There was a step when walking to the podium. Zhao Yinking stumbled in embarrassment. Sun Lu subconsciously stretched out his hand to support her. Zhao Yinking pulled his hand back as if he had been bitten by a snake, glanced at him in horror, and ran away with his head buried. The classmates who watched the whole process before and after had a different idea. Someone whispered, "It's Zhao Yinking, it's not a loss. I got started so quickly. Isn't the key technique too clumsy? When I met a handsome guy, his face was covered with cement, right?" Shi Tingting cast aside her mouth in disdain, and felt sick again in her heart, but what was going on with faint envy? After that day at the entrance of Class 3, there will be girls from other classes dangling by from time to time, and it becomes a lot more lively. Sun Lu was sitting at the back. He seldom went out and didn't see anyone approaching him. The classmates took the initiative to approach him, and their attitude was neither lukewarm nor cold, and most of them responded with one word. Qing Jiaokeng was like this, and no one had a bad impression of him. Perhaps it was because of his achievements as a blessing, or the cool temperament gave people the feeling that he was like this. No matter how neglected, it seems normal. For girls, this spotless temperament is particularly attractive. Everyone wants to be that special case, that unique existence. Zhao Yunqing never looked in the direction where Sun Lu was. That little corner was like a dusty tin can, with the traces of the years, so mottled that people dare not remember. The overall monthly test scores in the class are not satisfactory. In order to give the students the motivation to learn, we have to make something new in this boring stage. There is news that we will draw lots to study in teams, and the good and bad will be divided into 2 groups, and lots will be drawn. On the day of the class meeting, the head teacher and the class members brought in 2 boxes, like a lucky draw on a supermarket event day. All students in the class line up according to their monthly test scores, and the countdown starts to draw lots one by one. Soon it was Zhao Yunqing's turn, and she naturally hoped that Do Na could be drawn. After all, the 2 were at the same table, which was very convenient. When she got the note and opened it, she got the representative of the English class, tall and chubby, wearing black rimmed glasses, and always ha 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 when he laughed. The seats were also changed accordingly. After the whole class moved, Zhao Yunqing felt refreshed as soon as he turned his head. Across the corridor, Sun Lu, who was the source of the nightmare, Zhao Yunqing felt that he was too back. Should he find time to burn incense and worship Buddha? She subconsciously found the original front table when the class hadn't been seated, and planned to make a team exchange with her. The original front desk was a little girl who was easily shy. After learning that Zhao Yunqing was here, and knowing that she was next to Sun Lu, she refused without saying a word. She whispered, "I see handsome guys easily nervous. Sister, I see this handsome guy is more nervous, I want to jump into the river." Zhao Yunqing looked constipated and looked for a suitable person. The head teacher urged on it first, "Sit down quickly," after changing positions. "Don't look left and right. The next monthly exam will still be ranked by grades, so cherish your friendship at the same table for a month, and study hard." Zhao Yunqing returned to his seat in a desperate manner, and he didn't say a few words at the same table with Xin, and sat down all morning without hesitation. "I went to the cafeteria for dinner at noon." Zhao Yunqing sat at a table with Do Na. Do Na's table mate is now the 3rd from the bottom. She belongs to Shi Tingting's group. I heard that the group of people were crazy and wanted to be close to Sun Lu, but Sun Lu didn't participate. This monthly exam is not within the scope of their lottery, and this special prize has to be kept until next month. However, Zhao Yunqing is now next to the grand prize, so many people are jealous. On that lap, Zhao Yunqing was a woman. It's really a bit red among the 10,000 green bushes. Are you jealous? Am I jealous of her? Come on, someone who is almost a fool and can't make any grades, is it worth my jealousy? Shi Tingting laughed and said, "Guess how much she will take the next monthly exam. The last one is in sight. But Sun Lu left it to us." Shi Tingting said, "You are crazy about Sun Lu. It sounds like you are not rare." "What's rare? It's nothing more than that." Back to the classroom after dinner, Zhao Yunqing felt a toothache when he thought of Sun Lu next door, and turned to the bathroom. Standing in front of the sink to wash his hands, a figure leaned over. Before Zhao Yunqing looked back, the other party opened his mouth and said, "I heard you want to change positions." Shi Tingting stood obliquely behind her, observing Zhao Yunqing's expression, putting away his previous aggressiveness, and deliberately lowered her posture and said, "I'll change with you. I just don't want to sit in the window position. It's too noisy." Zhao Yunqing shook his wet hand and said, "Excuse me, I like to be quiet recently." Shi Tingting said, "Don't Chen Shui also sit by the window? Why are you willing to change with her? Are you her?" Zhao Yunqing looked leisurely, but his words were obviously to block her on purpose. Shi Tingting suddenly choked in her throat. She eased a bit and said, we don't have any big enemies, right? How come you become like this now? Zhao Yinking was too lazy to care about this issue with her, turned around and left. Shi Tingting was so excited by her ignoring attitude, she said in a vicious voice behind her, now that there are a group of boys sitting next to me, is it a sense of accomplishment? Zhao Yinking, you should converge and be less shameless. Thing. Zhao Yinking paused and became disgusted. She said, I don't want to converge, so I want to do something shameless, what's the matter? I can't understand that I am so close to Sun Lu, right? I tell you, I'm so close to him every day, and I get the moon first when I get close to the water tower. If there is anything to do, I am ahead of you. Shi Tingting was blue and white with her angry face. Zhao Yinking let out a hum and looked at her bitingly, waiting for how she resisted, and continued to prepare to fight back. As a result, Shi Tingting changed her face for a while and ran away angrily. Hey, it's not challenging at all. She curled her lips in disdain. The men's room suddenly turned out to be a person, slender, dressed in a generous red and white school uniform, clearly dressed in an unobtrusive outfit, but he had a strange sense of fashion when he wore it. Sun Lu walked to the sink to wash his hands, with earphones plugged in his ears, the white earphone cord draped over his face, his eyebrows drooping, and his thin long eyelashes cast shadows like cicada wings. Zhao Yinking froze on the spot, watching people come out, praying in his heart for the person to leave quickly, but Sun Lu stopped in front of her. Those eyes, like ice and Chen, looked over coldly. The height difference between the two was more than half of their heads, and Zhao Yinking had to lift his chin to look at him. But Sun Lu didn't say anything, just swept her around like looking at trash and left. Zhao Yinking let out a long sigh when she walked away completely, she was so scared to death. Sun Lu should have heard those words, right? No matter if you hear it, please let them never see each other in the future, let them be well. The new desk mate is K Junzi, very familiar and enthusiastic, and often chats with Zhao Yinking. Because of the need to study hard to change his life, Zhao Yinking could only fail his enthusiasm. K Junzi had no choice but to find others to play with. To be honest, this guy could not find a good student at all. The stereotyped shadow. People are really better than people. When I was a student, no matter it was in class or when reviewing questions, almost everyone would play there. K Junzi likes it very much. He spins like Hot Wheels. He feels that the faster he gets, the more handsome, which indirectly leads to the more frequent landing of this pen. Xiao Zhao, K Junzi slammed into Zhao Yinking, I went over there, pick it up for me. Zhao Yinking turned his head to look, good fellow, that black fountain pen was directly transferred to Sun Lu's feet. If you don't go, if you don't get married, I won't go. What does it matter if you pick up a pen? Zhao Yinking shook his head and refused very firmly. K Junzi pouted at her. After finding that acting like a baby was useless, he could only leaned over by himself and whispered, Student Sun Lu, please help me pick up a pen, thank you. Sun Lujao was cold and returned to high cold, but he was not the kind of person who was completely incomprehensible. Looking down, he leaned over and picked up the pen. K Junzi placed his hands in a flower shape and was ready to take the pen. Sun Lu didn't say a word and threw the pen over, but he missed his head and smashed it directly on Zhao Yinking's head. 3 people. It has been a while since the last encounter in the toilet. Zhao Yinking said sharply and vigorously, but then disappeared. Sun Lu has enough reason to suspect that this person is purely talking. Even now he has smashed his pen with his pen, and there is no reaction at all, let alone turning his head to look over, there is no movement to touch his head. He heard K Junzi asking her if she was okay there, Zhao Yinking shook his head, and couldn't hear what he said in reply. Sun Lu lowered his head and continued to write and draw on the paper, adding a bunch of numbers. He was calculating Sun Psyche's salary last month. Sun Psyche feels that the circle around him has a great influence on a person. Yingke is an aristocratic school, and all the students in it can become Sun Lu's future contacts, so she sent him here. For this reason, she worked hard and kept saving money, until I finally saved enough. However, there are still more than 2 years in the future. Even if the school has reduced the tuition fees, other additional expenses are not a small expense, so Sun Psyche still goes to work early and returns late every day, and has never stopped. She does assembly work in the factory. She spends 12 hours a day and can earn 6 to 7,000 yuan a month. She also does manual accounting every day. In the middle of the month, she can avoid errors and omissions. She has a specialization in the field of technology and accounting. It fell on Sun Lu's head. Sun Lu marked the total of several accessories on the side, closed the notebook and put it on the side. He glanced at Zhao Yunqing again. Kai Junzi tilted his head and was looking for a chat with her, but Zhao Yunqing didn't seem to have the intention of chatting. He read attentively. This person is not very good at school, but he works really hard. After not having contact with Shi Tingting, the relationship with Zhou Zhiying was not so good at first, but it got worse in an instant. Zhao Yunqing now has supplementary lessons every day, so he comes back late for dinner and occasionally solves it directly outside. These are all lost like shit, and it's not enough to feed chickens. Zhou Zhiying rarely followed the nanny to the kitchen today to give pointers, and these are also thrown away to avoid bugs. The babysitter said, they were all bought today, and there will be no bugs. Zhou Zhiying's brows wrinkled, and the hostess became majestic, and her voice pointedly said, is it obstructive? Hurry up. But I haven't come back when I drink it up, so I'll throw it all away. How can I get it if I don't eat it later? Zhou Zhiying, it's not that I didn't give her any leftovers. I really can't get some cold rice and stir-fry the eggs. You can't. The face of the nanny being blocked by her is not very good. She has been working in Zhao's family for many years, and she has never encountered such an attitude even when facing the real Zhao family. Throw it, do you want me to say it a few times? Zhou Zhiying puts her hands around her chest, her feet on plush slippers, a black one-aline skirt, a burgundy silk shirt, and big brown wavy hair behind her head. She is a wealthy wife. Style. Without a word, the nanny dumped all the dishes reserved in advance into the trash can, and threw away all the food that could be thrown in the refrigerator. Zhou Zhiying was satisfied and walked away. When Zhao Yunqing came back this day, he happened to have no use of food yet. When he went to the kitchen to search, he didn't even have any root hairs. The babysitter was always paying attention to the movement here, and quickly came over. Aunt Zhang, where is my meal? Aunt Zhang looked up, and whispered, it was all thrown away. Ms. Zhou asked for it. I don't think it would be good to leave the food for a long time, so. After that, Zhao Yunqing understood everything. In short, she started to wear small shoes. It is estimated that Zhao Zhengyang will be served well, otherwise she will not be so bold. My dad hasn't returned yet. Aunt Zhang nodded. I see, you go back to sleep. Aunt Zhang said, I will buy more tomorrow and put it in a different place. No, just do whatever you usually do. Aunt Zhang looked at her sadly. Zhao Yunqing smiled and said, don't worry, it's okay. She turned around and went back to the room, bought a mini camera online, put it in the kitchen when there was no one, and then carried a box of noodles back and put it in the refrigerator. That night, Zhou Zhiying repeated the old tricks. Not only did he throw away the food, but he also threw away the box of noodles that Zhao Yunqing bought. Zhao Yunqing looked at the monitoring screen on the phone and twitched the corner of his mouth coldly. Zhao Zhengyang has been very busy with the company recently. He only returns home the next day or even a few days, and every time he comes back, he will ask about the child's situation. Zhou Zhiying hung the coat he took off on the hanger, and said, it's all very good. It's better to drink up and make up lessons every day. I want to take the next monthly exam. How are you two getting along now? It's almost the same as before. I'll talk less and don't obstruct her eyes. The voice was aggrieved. Zhao Zhengyang turned around and squeezed the woman's cheeks and said, "Yeah, I'm sorry for you. Okay, don't worry about children. After a long time, you will naturally accept you after drinking it." Zhou Zhiying let out a low. Then the attention turned away, and the two of you were ready to take a bath together. Suddenly there was a loud bang on the first floor. Zhou Zhiying was taken aback and said, "What happened downstairs?" Zhao Zhengyang drew some of her untied clothes and said, "Go down and take a look." The two hurried off together. Shi Tingting also walked out after hearing the sound. Zhou Zhiying beckoned, calling people to his side. In the kitchen, Zhao Yinking stood alone under the cold white light, smashing everything that could be smashed, looking at the incoming people with a blank face. Zhao Zhengyang said angrily, "Why did you go crazy at night?" "I'm crazy." Zhao Yinking said nonchalantly, "You can ask what good things your women have done recently." Zhou Zhiying bit her lower lip with a wounded look on her face. "Zhao Yinking, what are you pretending to be innocent? You are here to pretend to be weak when you know your man is here, aren't you usually upright?" Zhao Yinking. Zhao Zhengyang warned, "Have you talked to elders like this? What qualifications does she have to be my elder?" Zhou Zhiying looked like he was hit hard, and he took a step forward weepingly, "Drink clear, what did I do? Make you hate me so much?" Zhao Yinking smiled, "The acting is so good, why don't I go to get an Oscar? I also come back every night. In the end, I don't talk about getting along with each other, but also give me shoes. I am hungry now. Isn't the next step? Are you going to drive me out of Zhao's house?" Zhao Zhengyang glanced at the kitchen counter and smashed everything he could. Those few dishes that were prepared specially were all there. "What's on it? Is it possible to feed the dog?" Zhou Zhiying whispered, "I made it specially for Yinking." Shi Tingting cried out, "Zhao Yinking, don't go too far. My mother has cooked for you specially, what else do you want?" Zhao Zhengyang patted Zhou Zhiying's back comfortably, and asked softly, "How did you do it? What about the babysitter? Isn't the home always inviting a babysitter? Aunt Zhang told me a few days ago that there was something urgent to do at home. I saw that she couldn't wait at all, so I agreed. The new babysitter has not been found yet." Without saying anything, Zhao Yinking swept the rice cooker with the electricity still plugged into the ground. With an explosion, the hot rice was sprayed out. Zhou Zhiying's mother and daughter screamed in fright. Shi Tingting roared, "Zhao Yinking, are you sick?" Zhao Yinking tilted his head with a mean face, an expression of "what you can do with me." Zhao Zhenjiang's face was green with anger, and he was about to step forward and grab this little madman. Zhao Yinking suddenly reached out and pressed the remote control that he had been holding. He looked at Zhao Zhengyang coldly and said, "Don't worry, I'll show you something good first." The TV in the living room turned on, and after the cold blue light, all the pictures of the kitchen were broadcast these days. Zhou Zhiying commanded Aunt Zhang to clear the refrigerator once a day, very regular. "Ms. Zhou, even if you don't save some food for Yinking, she should always keep the noodles she bought for her." "What to keep? Are instant noodles such as junk things that people can eat? Is it because I put it in a large refrigerator here to store instant noodles for her? That can't be like this every day, right? The child is still growing. Those who have the brain will buy it outside. It's not that Zhao Zhengyang didn't give her the money, so he threw it to me. But what's the matter? You have a big opinion? Just get out of here if you don't want to do it. You are loyal. How much benefit did the Zhao family give you?" Zhao Yin settled something, "It was me who lay next to her father every day, and I was the hostess of this house." The scene jumped for a while, and the moment in the room was a bit horrible. Except for Zhou Zhiying's arrogant and domineering voice on the TV, even her breath seemed to disappear. Zhou Zhiying's face was comparable to applying wall powder, as white as a dough. She panicked and yelled, "Zheng Yang!" Then he stumbling and ran to the living room to turn off the TV. "Stop for me!" Zhao Zhengyang said in a very calm tone, still keeping his sight on the TV. "Listen to me, I am to shut up." Zhou Zhiying was like a duck whose neck was pinched, with her mouth stiffened, her eyes were really filled with water vapor, and she was really scared to cry. Shi Tingting didn't expect to reverse so quickly, she looked at the other end in a panic, and then at this end, not knowing what to do for a while. Zhao Yunqing leaned on the kitchen counter, looking at the mother and daughter who had turned over and over with a relaxed expression, and threw the remote control to play. Zhou Zhiying approached Zhao Zhengyang cautiously, and said softly, "Zhengyang, I'm so angry that this is the case, you know." With a pop, Zhao Zhengyang slapped her backhand. Zhou Zhiying clutched her cheek, was beaten blindly, looked at him incredulously. "I served you delicious food, but that's what happened to my daughter." Zhao Zhengyang put his hands in his pockets, black trousers, white shirt, even though a few buttons on the neckline seemed a bit loose, but for a long time the majesty of being in a high position still inadvertently flowed out. "What are you guys? Pack things and roll them." "No, Zheng Yang, I was wrong, you give me another chance, I beg you." Zhou Zhiying finally cried, the makeup that had not been removed on his face quickly faded, looking embarrassed and pitiful. Shi Tingting stood there stiffly, not knowing what to do. Zhao Zhengyang took out the phone and called the security guard. Zhou Zhiying jumped over and hugged his leg, Zhao Zhengyang kicked it off, and then pulled Zhao Yan out of the kitchen. When the father and daughter left the villa, Zhao Zhengyang deliberately drove her to have a good meal. Because of his negligence, his daughter was neglected, so Zhao Zhengyang kept serving Zhao Yunqing like a little this evening, just to ask for her daughter's forgiveness. That night, Zhou's mother and daughter left the villa, and Aunt Zhang was called back. Shi Tingting didn't show up at school the next day. "I heard that she took a long vacation." After a period of turmoil, life returned to calm. Zhao Yunqing thought she had completely swept these two out of her life. Unfortunately, Shi Tingting returned to school a week later. Although people looked thinner in the past, they also became more low-key than in the past, and when they met Zhao Yunqing, they took a detour and didn't dare to provoke them. "Ting Ting, where is your driver?" Shi Tingting said and said, "I quit my job. My dad told me not to make special cases, so now I have to take a car to and from school." "True? But I think Zhao Yunqing is still driving to and from school." Shi Tingting pursed her lips and said nothing. The other said, "Didn't you say that Zhao Yunqing was rubbing your car last time? Why is she still the same now?" Yes, are you lying to us?" Shi Tingting buried her head and walked directly out of the encirclement. "Cut, what's the matter? Let's spread this panic that will help you at a glance." "That's it, it's too vain, even this kind of panic. I heard that the poorer people are, the more they like to have money. Isn't her family actually very poor?" "Possible." Shi Tingting walked faster and faster, wishing to poke her ears deaf. After being kicked out of the Zhao's villa, Zhou Zhiying took her to stay in a hotel like a cross-street mouse for a few days. Later, Zhou Zhiying went to find Zhao Zhengyang again. "I don't know what method was used." In the end, Zhao Zhengyang let them go. Immediately afterwards, he was placed in another apartment of the Zhao family. The family was complete. The two mothers and daughters were enough to live, but compared with the previous houses, they were not at the same level, and the previous treatments were not good for the time being. "It's possible." Shi Tingting was angry and embarrassed again, and finally counted all the resentment on Zhao Yunqing's head. If it weren't for this person to make trouble and couldn't understand the two mothers and daughters, how could she be so embarrassed? She would make Zhao Yunqing pay the price one day. I don't know if Zhao Yunqing will pay the price, anyway. She feels that the price paid by Zhou's mother and daughter is almost the same as nothing. She didn't question Zhao Zhengyang, but Zhao Zhengyang knew that he was not doing this kindly, so she peeked at Zhao Yunking's expression for several days. Finally, he deliberately dragged people to the mall to ease Zhao Yunking's emotions by accompanying shopping. There are only a few shops that I often go to, specializing in high-order settings, and most people do not accept them. Go over there and take a look. Zhao Zhengyang suddenly grabbed Zhao Yunqing and walked in another direction. That is also a women's clothing store, which is doing vigorous promotion. This is not the key. The important thing is that the style of this store is rather mature, which obviously does not meet Zhao Yunqing's age. She turned her head suspiciously and glanced at her own Laozi, and said, "Have you never looked down on these discounted supermarket-like clothing stores? Why are you interested in shopping today? The so-called dobayo will be unexpected. Isn't it good to have some freshness?" Zhao Yunqing was shocked by this unreliable argument. Entering the store, a few customers were walking around. One of the women was slender, beautiful, and very good-looking. She liked a navy blue jacket, but she was hesitating because of the price or the style. When Zhao Yunqing saw this man, he couldn't help but want to run. She stretched out her hand to pull Zhao Zhengyang, but when she was middle-aged, she was still passionate enough to be like a man with a butterfly. She said first, "I think that big red dress suits you better. White people are suitable. Brighter colors." Zhao Yunqing. Zhao Zhengyang has nothing else. This lustful characteristic is estimated to be unchangeable in this life. The woman looked at her clothes uncertainly and said, "Really? I rarely wear red." Zhao Zhengyang smiled like a flower, and said, "I think it's good, I suggest you try it." Zhao Yunqing Mu stood in place with a face, and pulled Zhao Zhenjiang's hemline, "Go." Zhao Zhengyang was unmoved. Zhao Yunqing grabbed him again and said, "Dad, let's go." At the same time, another clear voice came from behind, "Mom, have you finished your election?" As soon as Zhao Yunqing heard this sound, he straightened his back subconsciously, and his hairs stood upside down. When Lu Saiqi saw her son coming over, she lifted the clothes in her hands just like seeing the rescuer. "I still can't choose, or change to another store." Sun Lu said, "It's up to you, but I have something to do today, and I have to go later. Weekends, or big weeks, are rare days to rest." Lu Saiqi put down the clothes in her hand, "Forget it, next time." Zhao Zhengyang put in another sentence, saying, "It's a rare discount, and the styles are good-looking. The clothes are the same as people. If you like it, you have to start it as soon as possible, and you may not get it later." Sun Lu finally turned his head and looked over, his eyes swept coldly on Zhao Zhenjiang's face, then turned to Zhao Yunqing, and then frowned. Zhao Yunqing immediately drew a clear line and said, "I'm here to buy clothes, by chance." "Sun Lu, you go to a middle-aged and elderly clothing store to buy clothes." Zhao Yunqing stretched his finger to old Zhao and said, "My dad buys him for a woman." "Tisk, what is the kid talking nonsense?" Zhao Zhengyang whispered. Sun Lu was not interested in knowing the specific situation of the father and daughter of the Zhao family, and turned his attention to Lu Saiqi. Lu Saiqi likes the clothes in her hand, but it's really too expensive. Even if it is discounted, it costs nearly 1,000 yuan. How much does she make a month when she works in a factory? She threw the clothes away and said, "Let's go." He politely smiled when he passed by Zhao Zhengyang. The gentle face was like a calm lake. When he laughed, the ripples slowly swayed away, making people unable to help their heart move. "Okay, don't look at it, everyone is walking away," Zhao Yunqing said unbearably. The two also walked out. Zhao Zhengyang said, "Is that your classmate?" "Okay. Is there a divorce?" Zhao Yunqing exclaimed, "Can't you just miss people better? Just ask." A terrible old man. Lu Saiqi is indeed single, but she is not divorced, but widowed. It is said that when Sun Lu was very young, her husband had an accident and passed away. The two mothers and sons depended on each other, and they had a hard time. In the last life, after Zhao Yunqing learned about their family's situation, he felt very distressed and tried every means to help, but Sun Lu blamed all this on sympathy, which directly hurt his self-esteem, and in a flash, Zhao Yunqing gave him the approval. Worthless. Zhao Yunqing lowered his head and swept out the remaining pictures in his memory. It's now, it's always different. After a period of time passed relatively smoothly, and soon the second monthly exam came. The high school work is heavy, and the seat transfer is too frequent once a month. The head teacher temporarily changed his mind to once a semester, which is no different from the past. The students booed disappointedly. Zhao Yunqing followed and sighed silently, dying, but the plague god at the back oblique still couldn't get rid of it, and his heart was tired. Is it a burden for me to be at the same table as you? Kei Junzi couldn't help but ask when hearing her sigh. Zhao Yunqing shook his head quickly, no, I think you are pretty good. Really? Kei Junzi was inexplicably lost today. You girls all like Sun Lu's model. We can only stand aside, no matter how hard we work, we can't use it. Zhao Yunqing glanced at his slightly larger body, little fat guy. Kei Junzi, do you think I can't compare to Sun Lu no matter what I do? No, I still don't know where Sun Lu is good. Really? Kei Junzi's eyes lit up and he pushed the frame on the bridge of his nose. Everyone said that he looks good and has good academic performance. He doesn't deliberately be ambiguous with girls. He is all good. But he doesn't like to take care of people. He is very rude. He owes him millions every day with a stinky face. He is pretty cold, but he has no emotional intelligence. Kei Junzi nodded in agreement and said, we boys all think he is not easy to get along with. Zhao Yunqing, if you don't get along well, don't get along, this kind of person. Suddenly someone knocked on their desk, slender 5 fingers slightly bent, propped on the table, the back of the hand was as white as porcelain, and a circle of black rope hung on the thin wrist. The two of them were lying on the table and chatting. Kei Junzi raised his head first, then he straightened his back and immediately sat down. Sun Lu looked at the two people with cold eyes, and handed out the English homework in his hand. I missed it. Kei Junzi answered with a guilty oh a few times. Sun Lu looked at Zhao Yunqing again, and stopped her eyes fixedly for a few seconds. Zhao Yunqing swallowed with difficulty, for fear that he would be ridiculed by Sun Lu as he did in his previous life. There are sharp thorns in those words, and the words that directly pierce the heart are still shadows. The irrelevant status quo is pretty good, it's okay to say what he is doing, it's really enough to get enough. Fortunately, Sun Lu didn't say anything, so he turned around and left. Kei Junzi let out a sigh of relief, and said, this popularity scene is terrifying. Sure enough, it is impossible to speak ill of people behind their backs. After a torrential rain, the temperature dropped sharply, and the whole school put on winter clothes. Zhao Yunqing goes in and out with half of his face buried in his collar every day. It didn't take long for the Christmas atmosphere to begin to be strong. This popular Western holiday in China seems to have become an alternative Valentine's Day. The students wandering around the campus began to prepare gifts for their loved ones. Good students such as Do Na are no exception, but she is preparing for her old cousin, and the two cousins have better relationships. She asked Zhao Yunqing to accompany him to buy gifts. Zhao Yunqing did not buy gifts for others less in her previous life, but at that time all the things she bought were more expensive, all expensive luxury goods. Of course, when they came to Sun Lu, they were treated the same as rubbish. Do Na's financial conditions are limited, and Zhao Yunqing naturally has to take care of this, but she just can't grasp that degree. They wandered around the commercial street. Do Na went into several boutiques to pick and choose, but did not find a suitable one. Zhao Yunqing paid close attention to the prices, and they all hovered within 300 yuan. It's cold. Wouldn't it be better to buy him a textured scarf or a sweater? It still feels more practical. Zhao Yunqing suggested. Do-na put down a woolen hat in her hand, nodded, and said, I feel so too. Not far from the commercial street, there is a large shopping mall that just opened this year. On the first floor is a cosmetics and goldwear counter, on the second floor for women's clothing, on the third floor for men's clothing, and up there are food and entertainment. There are various big red plastic hanging in the middle of the infield, and underneath is a huge green Christmas tree with glowing lights tangled all over the body. Beside the tree roots are various gift boxes, and artificial snow-like props are placed on the ground. Some children are jumping around and playing. I took the escalator and went directly to the third floor. Some staff in the mall were distributing mini Santa Claus. Zhao Yinking and Do-na took one and hung it on a school bag. Looking around, almost every store is doing activities. Zhao Yinking grabbed Do-na and said, Go to this shop, the discount is the most powerful, and I have broken a bone. They went in and took a look. There are many styles, most of them look good, but the new models are expensive even if they are broken. The ones that Do-na can bear are already last year's models. She fell in love with a grey, fine-grained, middle-necked Korean sweater. It felt very soft, and she could imagine how comfortable it would be to wear it on. You'll tell her that it's a special offer, now it's 288 yuan, can I replenish the rest? Zhao Yinking avoided Do-na and secretly told the salesperson. The salesperson gladly accepted it. Who would be unwilling to make money? After Zhao Yinking transferred the money, the salesperson walked over and said to Do-na. Do-na looked at her suspiciously and said, Is it such a coincidence? You said this is the latest one. That's right, the salesperson started to talk nonsense with a smile, we have a limited time to kill, this is the one, this point is just starting, do you want it? Zhao Yinking would like to give this salesperson a thumbs up, and he was really good at it. Naturally, I bought the clothes. Although Do-na felt inexplicable, she always felt something was wrong, but it was a good thing after all, and she might be lucky. When paying the money, another customer came in and another salesperson went to meet him. However, the voice was very familiar. Zhao Yinking and Do-na looked at each other, then turned to look at each other. It happened that Sun Lu and Ren Shui were here, handsome men and beautiful women, both seductive and right. Do-na whispered, Wow, this girl is so beautiful, is Sun Lu's girlfriend? Zhao Yinking shook his head, saying that he didn't know. The two of them were also choosing clothes. Seeing the energy, Ren Shui was going to buy Sun Lu, and he took one down and gestured in front of him. Sun Lu just stood quietly, and occasionally glanced at her, that kind of soft gaze Zhao Yinking had never had in his previous life. But why couldn't I understand it at that time? Zhao Yinking lowered his head slightly, feeling helpless. It was a hell. Every time he entered a shopping mall, he could meet this person. Does he have to look at the almanac every time he goes out? The sweater salesperson is doing the final inspection and sorting, and they are waiting by the side. Hey? That sweater is good, is there any more? Ren Shui pointed in their direction from a distance. Sun Lu followed and looked over. Zhao Yinking put aside his head. Salesperson, grey is gone, black and white are there. Ren Shui was a little disappointed. Sun Lu said, walking somewhere else. Ren Shui glanced at him, and stood still. Zhao Yinking and Do-na went out of the store together. Do-na said with a tangled expression, the classmates didn't even say hello. Is this really good? Zhao Yinking said, he was so eager to do this, he didn't like to talk to us, I didn't talk to him much anyway, did you? Do-na shook her head, are you not talking so close? How dare you? Do-na nodded in agreement, and then said, but there are still many people who envy you for being so close to him. On the other side, as soon as someone left, the salesperson was talking about the interesting thing just now, and after listening to it, he passed by. Sun Lu, who had been silent all the time, suddenly said, which one do you say helped pay? The one with big eyes and a very cute look. Salesperson number 2, that little girl is pretty good looking, and she looks very well behaved. Yes, no matter how good your heart is, just help your friends so silently. The closer Christmas is, the lower the temperature will drop. One day when class was in session, snow suddenly fell outside the window, and the first snow of the year came just like that. Zhao Yunqing was rarely immersed in review, lying on the railing and looking at the crazy student underneath, silently calculating the time in his heart. Zhou Zhiying's birthday is approaching, just one day after Christmas. This was the time when the relationship between Zhao Yunqing and Zhou Zhiying broke completely in his previous life. At that time, Zhao Zhengyang could not come back to celebrate her birthday because of a business trip, but Zhou Zhiying found a little duck to accompany her, and was hit by Zhao Yunqing, so she stabbed Zhao Zhengyang. Originally, the two were going to be pornographic. However, Zhou Zhiying sold a good hand, and saved himself again. Zhao Yunqing did not keep any evidence, and had no evidence, so he could only give up. In the end, Zhao's family was directly robbed. Do it again, there is another dinner incident as a pavement, and it is impossible not to disturb the again. Zhao Yunqing was thinking about it, suddenly someone called her. Zhao Yunqing. Zhao Yunqing turned his head, his eyes widened suddenly, and couldn't help but step back. Sun Lu said, the Chinese teacher is looking for you. Zhao Yunqing said oh and hurried to the office. 20 multiple choice questions, you got 2 questions right, do you think it makes sense? The teachers of other subjects are saying that you have made significant progress recently. How come I have become like this? A Chinese teacher in his 30s who just got married. Papa questioned while tapping the test paper. It's really hard to blame her, she was too busy to lay the groundwork, and all her rote memorization was given to English, and she couldn't queue up for the time when she recited the language. I seriously suspect that your 2 questions are also correct. Is Chinese so difficult? It is so difficult that you can only correct 2 multiple choice questions. Forget it, I won't say much. Go back and think about it yourself. The Chinese for the college entrance examination is also listed. It is not irrelevant. Finally came to the conclusion, copy all multiple choice questions 5 times, and hand them in the day after tomorrow. Zhao Yunqing took the test paper and walked out with a sullen face. When he raised his head, Sun Lu was actually there again. There are also class teachers who are looking for me. He explained. Zhao Yunqing let out an "oh" and gave him a strange look. On Zhou Zhiying's birthday, the weather was not so good. The light rain and the wind was rustling. Zhao Yunqing arrived in the city center with the little information left in his memory, sitting in the Korean food shop window and waiting for the rabbits. She finally saw the pair of dog men and women when all the spicy stir-fried rice cakes in miso soup in front of her were all liquidated. Without a word, Zhao Yunqing took a photo with his mobile phone, and then followed them in silence for a day. The 2 of them were more or less scrupulous. At least 5 minutes had passed when they entered the hotel one after another. Zhao Yunqing thought, I will keep you in mind even half an hour later. 2 hours later, the 2 came out of the hotel with their shoulders on their backs. After all, they had been moisturized. Both sides were obviously red, and even the basic taboos were gone. Ching ching, mine and mine were walking down the street, and then I went into a jewelry store. Zhao Yunqing looked from a distance through a layer of glass, and it seemed that Zhou Zhiying was buying gifts for men. This little duck is so earning. At 4 or 5 in the evening, the 2 took a taxi to a place. On the outskirts of the city, they are all private main houses, most of which have independent courtyards. The only feature is that they are old. They are all kinds of old, compared to those high-rise apartments. This one looks grey. Zhao Yunqing followed them and turned into a small road. Some residents were washing vegetables by the well in the open space in front of the house, and there were also people standing in 2s and 3s talking together. Turned into an alley again, the road was narrower, and a trash can was placed at the door of each house, and there was a foul smell passing through the nose from time to time. Zhao Yunqing frowned, raised his phone and started to take pictures again. This time I have prepared enough material for you. See what else I can quibble about. Zhao Yunqing had a cold smile at the corner of his mouth, and then slowly stepped back 2 steps, and suddenly bumped into someone on his back. I was so scared that I let go, and the phone fell directly. It was picked up by the other hand. The 5 fingers are long and have distinct bone joints. It is a man's hand without the roughness that belongs to a man. It is as white as porcelain and tender as jade. It is very beautiful. Zhao Yunqing moved his gaze upward along this hand, a black sweater with thick lines, a distinct Adam's apple, a soft-lined chin, thin lips and starry eyes. Sun Lu flipped the phone over, looked at her, and said, "What are you doing here?" Zhao Yunqing swept his gaze into his hand, pursed his lips, and said nothing. Sun Lu shook the phone and said, "What is this again?" "Mobile phone. What are you taking?" Sun Lu stared at her for 2 seconds, and then said, "Are you following me?" Zhao Yunqing finally raised his head with a look of astonishment, and shook his head quickly, "No, no, no, you misunderstood, I didn't follow you." "Then why are you here?" Zhao Yunqing thought that even if I'm here, it doesn't mean that I'm following you, right? What I'm not doing well, can I follow you if I'm full? Sun Lu asked again, "What are you shooting?" Zhao Yunqing didn't want to be involved with Sun Lu, nor did he have the desire to communicate with him. In addition, Zhou Zhiying didn't know when she would come out, and now she just wanted to leave as soon as possible. "I took a picture, but it has nothing to do with you." Zhao Yunqing glanced at the building where Zhou Zhiying disappeared from the Qing dynasty and urged, "Return the phone to me. Delete what you took." Zhao Yunqing frowned, "I said it has nothing to do with you. It's deleted." Zhao Yunqing's face is not pretty. Although she already has enough evidence to prove Zhou Zhiying's derailment, it doesn't matter whether there is this video or not, but it is obvious that Sun Lu still suspects that she is following him. "Why should you recognize something you haven't done before?" Zhao Yunqing said, "When you said that you didn't follow you, you didn't follow you. Are you too narcissistic? Do you think that if you are a woman, you will fall into love with you, and you will indulge you?" Sun Lu's still calm eyes also followed the cold, and he went over as thin as a blade. "Zhao Yunqing." A rusty iron door on the side suddenly opened, and a beautiful and gentle woman came out, with a floral apron hanging on her chest, long curly hair tied behind her head, and a pair of black cloth shoes on her feet. Lu Saiqi looked at them in surprise and said, "Are you classmate? Hurry up and invite home." Before Sun Lu spoke, Zhao Yunqing shook his head frantically first, but he didn't expect that it would be Sun Lu, his mother. "I went to Sun Lu's house once in my last life, but it was after graduating from high school, and it was not in this area." Lu Saiqi thought that Zhao Yunqing was cautious, and smiled at her and said, "I remember you, you were with your father at the mall last time, come in and sit for a meeting, it's rare for a classmate from Alley to come over." "Thank you auntie, no trouble, I just happened to pass by." Lu Saiqi is kind and gentle, pragmatic, not a person who will come, and will not force others. After being rejected, he hesitated to look at Sun Lu. Zhao Yunqing's mobile phone is still in his hand, and this meeting doesn't seem to mean to return it immediately. "Alu." Lu Saiqi called to him. Zhao Yunqing followed in a low voice and said, "You return the thing to me, and I will go now." According to his dislike of being involved in many people, Zhao Yunqing thought that he would return it immediately, and no longer care about this oolong, but Sun Lu didn't have it. He calmed down for a while, turned his hand over, and said, "You come." The house is three-roomed, 1.5 high, with an attic above it. I don't know if it is filled with people or pure clutter. There is a simple decoration, the floor is tiled, the walls are white, and a slightly larger landscape painting is hung. Lu Saiqi was cooking, and after bringing Zhao Yunqing a plate of fruit, she went to work again. Sit down. Sun Lu threw the phone on the sofa and went to the kitchen to beat him. Looking in from Zhao Yunking's perspective, the two mothers and sons seemed to be talking. Lu Saiqi's mouth was smiling, and Sun Lu was still the iceberg face, but for some reason, a subtle warmth floated out. Such a scene has never been seen in her previous life, not that it does not exist, but Sun Lu will not give her this opportunity. Comparing the two lives, Zhao Yunqing now is no different from a stranger to Sun Lu, so when he counts, he really can't even compare to a stranger. Zhao Yunqing picked up the mobile phone and put it in her pocket, thinking about the past and said to go first. She could not really stay for dinner with grandeur. Others just kept it out of politeness, and she had to know herself. At the end of the kitchen, Lu Saiqi's faint voice floated out, and said in a very emotional tone, "It's been many years. Is this the first time there is one more person today?" "Okay." Lu Saiqi smiled lightly and nodded, "Very good. The dishes on this day are very rich, and the table is full." Zhao Yunqing is not a picky eater. As long as he can eat things normally, he can eat very happily. Someone once said that just watching her eat, cooks will feel a sense of accomplishment. I don't know if this is true. Lu Saiqi seems to be in a better mood, and she enthusiastically picked up a lot of dishes for Zhao Yunqing. Even Sun Lu looked over. Not long after the meal, Zhao Yunqing was about to leave. "Alu, you give it away." Lu Saiqi also filled a bag of oranges and stuffed it into Zhao Yunqing's hands. "Buy a lot, take it back to eat, it's delicious." Zhao Yunqing thanked him, did not refuse, and walked away. It was dark outside. Sun Lu followed behind her and walked out the door together. Zhao Yunqing subconsciously glanced to the left-hand side, black and black, occasionally there are insects. I don't know if Zhou Zhiying is gone. The alley is not long, and after walking for a while, I walked on a larger section. "Is it a special day today?" Zhao Yunqing asked. Sun Lu said, "My father died. In previous years, the two mothers and sons spent time together. They lived clean and slightly sad. I felt that such days were not suitable for outsiders, and even Ren Shui had never been there. Today, Zhao Yunqing was invited in by mistake, and the atmosphere of depression was a little bit less, and it seemed to be quite good." Zhao Yunqing didn't expect this to be the answer. She was silent, took out an orange and peeled it, divided it in half, and said, "Do you want it?" Sun Lu glanced and shook his head. Zhao Yunqing ate it by himself, ate 3 in a row, and went straight to the road. "Let's stop here, my driver came to pick me up, thank you for the hospitality." Black Big Ben stopped a few meters away, and 2 car lights were shining in their direction. Zhao Yunqing said, "Also, I really didn't follow you." Sun Lu raised his eyebrows, "When you say this, I remember that you haven't deleted anything yet." Zhao Yunqing quickly turned around and ran, and quickly got into the car. The car turned around and drove away. Through the car window, she looked at the back of Sun Lu turning around and walking back. She was so relaxed that she had never felt relaxed when facing her. Zhao Yunqing handed the bag of oranges out to the co-pilot, and said, "Uncle Tang, take it back and eat it." Tang Anfa glanced around and said with a smile, "Did your classmates take it?" "Well, his mother gave it, it's delicious." "Then don't you keep some for yourself?" "I ate it just now, and it got angry after eating too much." On the other side, Sun Lu turned into the alley, and when he was about to get home, the door of a house not far away suddenly opened. A man and a woman came out, talking and laughing, walking towards this side. Sun Lu remembered Zhao Yunqing's look back not long ago, so he couldn't help but look at it more. Under the not-so-bright street lamp, one can vaguely see that women are slightly bigger than men. "What are you afraid of a little girl doing in the film? Next time I call out to help you clean up. You can pull it down, don't let her go the other way." "How can I am going to drown on you." The woman smiled and trembled, "Tuck, you go on." After Zhao Yunqing got home, he went upstairs to take a shower, and then went into the study that he didn't often go to. Zhao Zhengyang hasn't come back from a business trip, and Xianghao is hiding it from him. Maybe this is still in the duck's arms. Zhao Yunqing turned on the computer, copied all the videos and photos in the phone, and sent them to Zhao Zhenjiang's mailbox after finishing. At the same time I sent him a message, "Dad, I gave you a gift, remember to check it." Zhao Zhengyang. 3 days later, during the lunch break, there were still many students in the class, except for those who lived on campus and returned to the dormitory. There are homework, small talk, and pure sleep. Zhao Yunqing was lying on the table, reciting the text with his eyes closed. Shi Tingting rushed over at this time, and after screaming, she dragged Zhao Yunqing up without saying anything, and began to pull frantically. The attack was too sudden, and Zhao Yunqing fell short for a while. Ke Junzi said twice, "Hey, hey," and then he wanted to intervene to help, only to find that boys would be fine when girls were crazy, and there was no chance to persuade them. Most people were in a daze. Zhao Yunqing was pressed underneath, and he ate 2 heavy meals. "Why are you doing this to me? I haven't provoked you to provoke you now, why are you still having trouble with me? Go to hell!" Shi Tingting dragged the stool and smashed it up, but another force stopped her. Sun Lu didn't know when he came in. He easily held the leg of the stool with one hand, and looked at Shi Tingting, who was in tears and embarrassed. "Sun Lu," she murmured, her eyes were bloodshot from the rage, and the crazy expression on her face hadn't completely receded. This would look like a lunatic. "Enough trouble." Sun Li tugged hard, dragged the stool down, and threw it to the side. "That's it. You." Shi Tingting wanted to say a word to Sun Lu in her dreams, but she didn't want to be the current situation. She was frightened and angry, and her grievances turned into tears. Zhou Zhiying cried and called, saying that all bank card accounts were frozen and he was kicked out of Zhao's apartment again. This time, Zhao Zhengyang didn't show up. Not only didn't show up, but she couldn't see anyone even if she tried her best. Even if you want to recover, you can't find a breakthrough. The key is that you don't know why Zhao Zhengyang is angry again. After thinking about it, only Zhao Yunqing is playing tricks. They have avoided so far, why refuse to let them go? It's so deceiving. Shi Tingting was angry, however, in order to stay in this school, in order to have a decent future, she swallowed her anger and didn't care about anything, but Zhao Yunqing still didn't let her go. Why? Why? Shi Tingting was stunned and didn't think of any reason. Zhao Yunqing, who had climbed up, picked up the desk full of textbooks without saying a word, and slammed Shi Tingting all his brains, and then rushed over, giving him a tooth for a tooth. I pressed it tightly, and gave her a few backheads after shaking his hand. Shi Tingting screamed to struggle. Zhao Yunqing grabbed her long hair and circled her hands twice, dragged the person out a little, kicked the person on her knees, and kicked the person directly to the ground. Shi Tingting cried desperately on the spot. Zhao Yunqing coldly watched the young girl who had almost given up struggling and was only crying. Ingredient things, think about whose food you eat. Are you embarrassed to come and show off with me? Your mother hooks up with a little duck all the time, you still have a good face? What's wrong? Do you still want to find someone to sell as a father? What a promise! Shi Tingting screamed, what nonsense are you talking about, you just hooked up with the seller. Don't believe me. Zhao Yunqing pulled the corner of his mouth, very gloating, should I send you those photos and videos? No, it should be sent to everyone. What more? Shi Tingting said. The head teacher suddenly walked in, slapped the door vigorously, and said sharply, what are you doing? You two will come out for me. This hinders other students from studying and rest. It's too idle, isn't it? The two were taken to the office. Shi Tingting had nothing to say except crying, and Zhao Yunqing asked 3 questions. Now all pretending to be deaf and dumb, wasn't it pretty ruthless just now? Are you still girls, girls like you? You don't have any reserved attitude, do you think it's appropriate? Speak for yourself, please parents or what? Zhao Yunqing doesn't care. If you ask the parents, please ask the parents. She is not afraid at all. Where does Zhao Zhengyang want to control her? Shi Tingting's complexion is not so good, this will make Zhou Zhiying come over, that is, she is asking for her guilt, she whispered in a low voice, looking helpless and pitiful. The last two each wrote a review, and by the way, they were fine to stand for a long time. At the back door of Zhao Yunqing station, it was still class time. He looked up and looked out the blue sky like a wash. The teacher's voice was in his ears, and a few students got up to answer the questions. The sun was fine, she stood a little hotter, took off her coat and tied it to her waist. Before long, the bell rang after class. The physics teacher came out of the next class with a lesson plan, and smiled at Zhao Yunqing and said, "Yeah, you are still standing. How long is your boss letting you stand?" Zhao Yunqing said, "For a long time." The physics teacher gave her a thumbs up. The corridors were quickly filled with students, some who turned a blind eye to them, and some who looked curiously at them, and even those with good things leaned on the window and asked loudly what's going on with the two girls. Sun Lu, who came up from downstairs, walked to Zhao Yunqing in front of a bunch of eyes. He took a iodine out of his pocket and handed it to her, "Here." Someone whispered, "Wow! What's the situation? When did Sun Lu get involved with this person? There is something tricky, didn't Sun Lu never ignore people? Is it because Zhao Yunqing looks good? Please, Zhao Yunqing looks good. What the do you look in her eyes, she doesn't look good. Are you afraid that you are not looking for a god?" The squeaky voices from the surroundings came over without covering up. Zhao Yunqing frowned, and a sudden irritation rose in her heart. Since her rebirth, she has always warned herself that to stay away from Sun Lu, the two live in their own lives, and their happiness is the best choice. The last encounter was an accident, and Zhao Yunqing didn't plan to have another accident. She stared at the iota 4 in Sun Lu's hand, and then said in a voice that only two of them could hear, "Sun Lu, can you stay away from me?" The noise in the ear was still there, and a group of people continued to watch the excitement enthusiastically. Shi Tingting on the other side was already gritted with jealousy. Sun Lu retracted his hand, turned around and entered the classroom through the back door, and threw the iota 4 into the trash can without hesitation. He returned to his seat, resting his chin in one hand, and started to flip the book with the other, as if nothing had happened the previous moment. His face was indifferent, as usual, there was a breath of strangers who would not enter. The 10-minute break soon passed, and the hallway became quiet again. Zhao Yunqing leaned against the wall and stood like this for a long time. When school was over, both legs felt hard. She walked out with her school bag on her back and took out the mobile phone she had left for a long time to read. There were messages and missed calls on it. Seeing the note on the screen, she froze for a moment, and then called back. The call was quickly connected. Zhao Yunqing called out, "Mom! Yan Qiaochun and Zhao Zhengyang have been divorced for many years, and they took a lot of money at the beginning, and they were divided into two good houses. As long as you don't make it too much, you won't be too bad in your life. But it is a pity that Yan Qiaochun has developed a single-cell brain. Apart from being good-looking, it has nothing to do with it. Being cheated of money and deceived oneself ended up with nothing. In the last life, she kept relying on Zhao Yunqing for relief, and in the end she didn't even bother to care about her. But Zhao Yunqing remembered that after he died, this woman was also seriously grieving, and she was the only person who cursed Sun Lu in the morning hall. Yan Qiaochun's cowardly temperament, and the appearance of being wronged all the year round, it is not easy for her to yell at her. When Zhao Yunqing arrived at the school gate, Yan Qiaochun was already waiting there. She wore a sportswear, and her long hair was tied into a ball head, which looked much younger than her actual age. Gentle willow eyebrows, cute water-dropping eyes, cherry lips and nose. Eyes are wet when looking at people, with a pitiful effect. As Zhao Yunqing had expected, she really ran out of money. What have you been doing recently? Yan Qiaochun said, I was looking for a job, but I didn't find the right one. Yan Qiaochun is not well educated, and Zhao Zhengyang was taken away by Zhao Zhengyang before she actually went to work a few days after she came out of home. After a few years of leisure, she officially parted ways. At that time, I had money in my hands, and I didn't even think about learning anything. I lived in a muddle-headed way. Now, I have no academic qualifications and no ability. What are you looking for? Yan Qiaochun thought for a while and said, the environment should be clean. Don't be too tired. It's best to find a weekend. I heard that there is a lot of work in the business district. I'll check it out in a few days. If you want money, don't get tired. If you want to be clean and have a rest, how can you have such a good job? Do you know the most basic office software in the office? Yan Qiaochun was silent. Zhao Yunqing said, you don't know anything, why do you ask for so much? Being educated by her biological daughter pointing to her nose, as dull as Yan Qiaochun, she was a bit embarrassed, and her complexion was slightly ugly. But when he spoke again, his tone was still low and soft, I'll take a look again, it's not that I didn't find it, I have to take it slow, right? I'll help you find it, then you can go to work directly. Zhao Yunqing didn't even see Yan Qiaochun's desire to speak but stopped. Transferred all the little money on the card, ready to leave. What's wrong with your hand? Yan Qiaochun realized that a large piece of skin had been rubbed off the back of her hand, and she was faintly flowing with a transparent liquid, as if she was about to suppurate. It's okay, Zhao Yunqing shrank his hand behind his back, I will go back and get some medicine later. You can also go back. Be careful on the way and see you in a few days. Time reckoned that the 2 sweets under Yan Qiaochun's name had already been squandered by her. To be on the safe side, Zhao Yunqing still asked, you still live in the Huading of Xiang Shui? Yan Qiaochun nodded. In the evening, Zhao Zhengyang returned home and chatted with Zhao Yin for a while. He didn't mention anything about Zhou's mother and daughter. Although they didn't mention it, the price they should pay was no less. At least Shi Tingting didn't come to school the next day, and then the direct news came out that she had dropped out of school. There were more or less gossips in the class, thinking that Zhao Yunqing had done too much, and forced his classmates out of school. It doesn't matter, Zhao Yunqing is too lazy to fight for black and white, as long as the 2 people are successfully swept out of his own life, then it will indirectly change the destiny of the Zhao family in the previous life. Zhao Zhengyang will still be the present-day romantic but not desolate appearance, will not fall into the middle of the family, will not be dead. That's enough. Zhao Yunqing asked Yan Qiaochun to work as a cashier in a supermarket. Yan Qiaochun has no interest in this kind of external service industry, and feels that it is too embarrassing to show his face. If he bumps into a past acquaintance, that kind of mental gap is too great. Zhao Yunqing said, you are a divorced woman with no work experience. What else do you want to find? The supermarket has 2 shifts, working hours are good, and the environment is clean, which basically meets your requirements. Yan Qiaochun said, then you have to stand still, I'm afraid I won't be able to stand. You haven't stood yet, are you afraid that you won't be able to stand? Here, the salary is not high because of exhaustion, and 1 month is not enough. If you don't work, you don't even have this salary. People will pay you at least 5 social insurances and 1 housing fund. No matter how low the salary, you will have all the benefits you should have. Yan Qiaochun pouted, still planning to struggle to death. Zhao Yunqing said directly, either you are here, or you fend for yourself, I will never care about you anymore. Speaking of this, Yan Qiaochun was finally afraid. Without Zhao Zhengyang, she almost lived on Zhao Yunqing. Zhao Yunqing's pocket money is enough, and Zhao Zhengyang pays her every 3 to 5. This man is not a fool and knows his ex-wife's virtues, so he keeps his eyes closed for his daughter's sake and continues to raise his ex-wife. If Zhao Yunqing really let go, Yan Qiaochun couldn't even think about what would happen to him in the future. Yan Qiaochun naturally compromised, ready to go to work with peace of mind. As a result, within a few days, she carried her swollen feet and didn't retreat. The supermarket decided not to use her first. The cash register is a weak, the amount is not correct every day, and the old employees who took her are a little bit about to collapse. Yan Qiaochun said, I can't be blamed for this. The two sat facing each other at KFC, Zhao Yunqing was holding a hamburger, and there was nothing to say for a while. After spending a few more days idle, Zhao Yunqing found her a job as a general factory worker this time. He didn't need to use his brain to do 8 hours a day, repetitive work, as long as he could move his hands, he could do this job. Still in a sterile environment, sitting and doing work, not tired at all. Yan Qiaochun felt that he had to get along with a group of outsiders day and night, and he was a little unhappy. Zhao Yunqing said, What's the matter with the foreigners? There are no few people who have broken arms and legs. What's more, they just go to work together instead of letting you live together. What's the point of despising others? Yan Qiaochun didn't speak aggrieved. Zhao Yunqing looked at her for a while, sighed, slowed down a little, and said, Mom, we always have to find something for ourselves, right? The days are still so long, we can't live without a headless flies. Come on. Dao Li Yan Qiaochun couldn't listen to it, but Zhao Yunqing couldn't be wrong at all. She nodded perfunctorily, and then was arranged to start work. Time passed quickly, and when another round of cold air moved south, the final exam also came. It took 2 days for the final exam, and half a month of tuition at school after the exam. The test results came out as quickly as ever. Zhao Yun's liquidation is a special existence of their class. I don't know when the attention of the whole class has been silently shifted to her. Maybe everyone is wondering whether there is really such a thing as a reward for diligence, or whether even hard work can't offset the incompleteness of one's own ability. Do Na comforted her and said, There must be progress this time. After working hard for so long, I can make a little improvement. Zhao Yunqing nodded. In fact, she was not worried at all. She might not be able to rank among the top, but she felt quite good on the exam and would not continue to linger in the countdown. When the ranking came out, Zhao Yun swept around and found himself in his early 20s. Many of the people who had been watching showed disappointed expressions. It's really strange, it's still not good to see these people have nothing to do with them. K Junzi gave her a thumbs up and said, Awesome, you have the biggest rise in the class. Zhao Yunqing grinned at him, and said, Make more efforts. In the next half-month of tuition, the rhythm is still tense. Zhao Yunqing took the water glass and went to the water dispenser to receive water, while watching the boys outside the window who were playing basketball in other classes. A few coughs suddenly came from behind. She turned her head, and then froze. Sun Lu was also leaning over to catch the water, his face was a little crimson, his lip line was straightened slightly, and the tip of his original white nose was stained a little. He straightened up and took a couple of sips, and then coughed again. It looks like I have a cold. Zhao Yunqing opened his mouth, thinking about it, but said nothing. Sun Lu had already turned and walked back to his seat. He is tall and thin, and his whole person is wrapped in a winter school uniform. Maybe it is a relationship that is ill. It seems to be a bit fragile in the past. Elites also have morning jogs every morning. It is reasonable to say that day students should also participate, but due to time constraints, they are not so strict. Zhao Yunqing occasionally jumped twice. The cold air came in and out of the nasal cavity, and it didn't take long for me to feel the pain, and my throat and eyes became hot. Zhao Yunqing's heavy breathing became more and more pronounced. Do Na panted and said, Look, who is next to Sun Lu? Zhao Yunqing raised his head. The entire playground was filled with ebony students, and he couldn't tell who was with whom. Do-na, behind the flagpole, the one with the draped hair, did I make a mistake? It seems to be the squad leader, isn't it? I don't know, I haven't seen a class leader. Last dance in the National Day event, the school was a sensation, and the key person is the most famous one in our grade. After listening to popular science, Zhao Yunqing smiled and said, I didn't expect you to gossip and inquire so clearly. Ghost, I need to inquire about it. I already know it. Why are you not clear at all? When Zhao Yunqing came back to life, this period had passed, and there was no shadow of this girl in his memory. Do-na said again, I'm afraid I'm not after Sun Lu. It's normal to look at it. Few people in the school look down on him. Do-na nodded, that's right, can you say that this person's rank can catch Sun Lu? Zhao Yunqing's legs were a bit weak, and he staggered, grabbed Do-na and prepared to walk a few steps slowly, while saying, you forgot to see the last time you bought clothes? Do you think this squad leader has that woman? Does it look good? Do-na thought about it for a while and said, I have forgotten what people look like. Zhao Yunqing, it's useless for anyone to chase after him. Sun Lu has been hanged on that person. You know it again. I knew it was a fool to lie to you. Someone rubbed his shoulder suddenly. The two turned their heads one after another and saw Sun Lu, who stopped walking. His breathing was fairly steady, but the squad leader in their mouths was gone. Sun Lu's indifferent gaze swept over the two of them, and finally stopped on Zhao Yunqing. Fool! Zhao Yunqing! Do-na almost laughed crazy, she didn't even bother to care if Sun Lu had listened to the conversation. Zhao Yunqing was a little embarrassed, bumped her, and said, it's almost done, how long will you have to laugh? Ha 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 ha, I didn't expect Sun Lu to be quite humorous. Is this an indirect rejection of you? I really think too much, based on Zhao Yunqing's previous life experience, that will never be false. Ren Shui is the white moonlight in Sun Lu's heart that cannot be erased. It is his deepest yearning and most true love. But the misfortune came from the mouth. Zhao Yunqing didn't want to say more about this matter, chose to shut up, and turned the topic elsewhere. Do-na didn't let her go, and said, last time you gave Sun Lu to the station and gave you medicine. Many people have seen this. When did you have such a good relationship? Maybe he happened to have the thing in his hand, and he gave it to him. I didn't ask for it later. Look at his face, there is nothing moving, right? There will be a bunch of people guessing that you have an adulterous relationship with him. After all, the distance from the rear diagonally, all the boys around you are just a flower. When Zhao Yun heard it, he rolled his eyes and said, please, have you ever seen me say anything to him? What's more, there are a bunch of suitors who have a clear and secret love behind him. How dare I steal someone from them? I am very courageous. Okay. After the morning run, Do-na is going to the cafeteria to have breakfast. Zhao Yunqing came here after eating, but she was thirsty, and she was sweating, so she went to the small supermarket to buy water to drink. Go around the small road behind the cafeteria. There are not many people on this small road. As soon as Zhao Yunqing was about to turn, he saw Sun Lu and the monitor. The girl's face was full of shyness, and she held a white plastic bag and handed it to Sun Lu. Sun Lu looked down, but didn't mean to pick it up. It's still effective to take some medicine at the beginning of a cold. This is what I take every time, so you should try it too. The girl's voice was low, and Zhao Yunqing could barely hear it. No, thanks. I didn't buy it deliberately. I prepared it. You can take it. Sun Lu glanced at the time and said, I have something to do. Keep the medicine and take it. After he finished speaking, he turned and left, walking in the direction of Zhao Yunqing. To die. Zhao Yunqing originally wanted to turn around and run, but the road was a bit long, and the distance Sun Lu came over was not far. No matter how fast she ran, he could be seen by him, weighing the two, instead of being hit by him and seeing the embarrassed back. It might as well just stand in awkward place. So when Sun Lu turned, all he saw was Zhao Yunqing, whose eyes flickered with guilty conscience. Have you heard? He stared at Zhao Yunqing, whose eyes were turning around. Zhao Yunqing, I didn't mean it. Don't listen to it anyway. Zhao Yunqing had nothing to say. Sun Lu walked 2 steps towards her, then suddenly turned his head and coughed twice. Zhao Yunqing opened his mouth and said, "You stay away from me, this will be contagious." Sun Lu stared at her coldly for 2 seconds, then chuckled softly, not knowing whether it was ironic or speechless, "You can do it." Then walked around her. The young boy's thin back is still tall and straight, walking slowly away from the blue sky in the morning, his temperament is clear and dusty. Winter vacation is coming soon. Zhao Yunqing remembers that at this time of the year, Zhao Zhengyang would take her to the country's grandmother's house for the new year, but this time he didn't seem to have such plans. She was busy with work during the day and occasionally came back at night without mentioning it. When the nanny returned home during the vacation, Zhao Zhengyang took Zhao Yunqing out to settle the dinner, and would often ask her to go out to play with her classmates. Zhao Yunqing couldn't help but asked, "Are you not going to my hometown?" "Don't go, something will happen this year," Zhao Zhengyang said. The heating in the Japanese food store was very full. Zhao Zhengyang took off his jacket, grey sweater and a sulky pink shirt underneath. His hair would be a little messy after his styling. His eyes were deep, plus a little blessed figure. He looked over. It's not at all like a man with such an eldest daughter, at best in his early 30s. Then what do we do for the new year? Just 2 people. Zhao Zhengyang put the chopsticks fish fillet into her bowl, and said, "There are 2 of you. You can find a place to have a meal when the time comes. Do you have anything you really want to eat?" "No." "Zhao Zhengyang, is there any place you want to play?" "Nor." "Then just let it go." Zhao Yunqing nodded. "After that, I met with Do Na several times in the library, and then the new year was closed." After a cold year, Zhao Yunqing took the initiative to formulate a study plan after being lazy for a few days, thinking that he should hurry up and study. She is not qualified to relax. In his previous life, Zhao Yunqing was a person who couldn't stay at home, fooling around with a group of friends, eating, drinking and having fun every day. Those people have disappeared in this life, but Zhao Yunqing doesn't feel bored either, and occasionally reviewing with a good student Do Na, it doesn't make sense. Of course, they are not really pure books. There are good Spring Festival movies released, and they have also been to see them together. But all entertainment is limited to just 1 or 2 movies. 1 week before school started, Zhao Zhengyang told her a piece of news. "What did you say?" Zhao Yunqing's eyes widened. "Are you going to bring someone home again?" She finally swept the Zhou family's mother and daughter out, but it was only a few days now that she actually wanted to have another pair. Zhou's mother and daughter had the foundation in the previous life, and she can still play with them, but this newcomer, she can go on and tuo without the golden fingers. What if these 2 are more difficult to deal with than Zhou's mother and daughter, and the impact is more serious than them? Zhao Yunqing couldn't help but worry, and his face naturally didn't look pretty. Zhao Zhengyang said, "I said that they were borrowing to live in. The original house was owned by relatives. After some conflicts, they had to take it back. So they came to live here for a while, and the kid did well in his studies. You don't have a lot of problems all day long. Will it? I happen to have a personal education." "No, are you hurting me?" But Zhao Yunqing soon turned his attention back. "I refuse strangers to come home again. Have you forgotten what happened to the first 2? Can it be the same? The relationship is different, so it can't be compared. Where can you go differently? It's the same to let you, dare you say that you don't have that little guts?" Zhao Zhengyang gave a tisk, his expression serious. and said, "This is the attitude you should talk to adults." Zhao Yunqing originally wanted to say that you don't have many houses outside, right? Why not put people elsewhere? Then she thought about it again. She couldn't get information even when she was outside, and she didn't even know that Zhao's family was directly hollowed out. Zhao Zhenjiang's brain was filled with peach blossoms, and the romantic temperament should not be able to change in this life. His attitude is very firm, and he will not change his mind for a while. Zhao Yunqing couldn't think of a countermeasure at the moment, and it was not a wise choice for Sapo to roll. Seeing her there was silent in a daze. Zhao Zhengyang softened his tone again and said, "You should get along with them first. I said that it is mainly because her children have good academic performance. Don't you lack a partner who can study together like this now? And he is also from your school." Zhao Yunqing raised his eyes and said, "Our school? Yeah, you're the same age, the same grade, maybe they are in the same class. What is it called? The relationship is not there yet, so the name is not known yet." Zhao Yunqing exclaimed, "It doesn't matter to that point, I will say that your purpose is not simple." Zhao Zhengyang smiled, and he didn't hide it from this meeting, and said, "This time is different from the past. I'm not casual, don't worry." "I don't worry." Zhao Yunqing's face turned green by him. This matter was awful enough, and there was no one around him to talk about. Zhao Yunqing knew that Do Na was not a talkative person, so he asked her to complain. Do Na was very surprised by Zhao Zhenjiang's relationship history, but in the end she could only comfort her to take one step, which was actually broken. "Then when will this new tenant come?" Zhao Yunqing poked a pearl into his mouth and said, "Tonight." "What? So I am going back later." "What? Do Na is a good baby. She has her own schedule and must go home on time." Naturally, Zhao Yunqing will not force her. In the evening, the two said goodbye. Zhao Yunqing wandered on the street alone, went to the snack street to eat something, and then went to the nearest bookstore to stay. It was not until Zhao Zhengyang called that he informed the address and waited for the driver to pick him up. "It was already dark when I got home." The small bungalow was brightly lit, and the warm yellow light leaked from the window, and it tasted a little warm. Tang Anfu said, "Go in, I'm waiting for you, it looks like it's easy to get along with." Zhao Yunqing looked back at him and said, "Uncle Tang, we have all seen a lot, do you think it is really reliable?" As many women as Zhao Zhengyang has experienced, Tang Anfu has seen so many love debts, and this one knows the best about Zhao's peachy news. He nodded and said, "Go in and see for yourself." Zhao Yunqing got out of the car, went up a few steps, bowed his head and took the key to open the door. As a result, the door opened first from the inside. Feet with dark blue slippers, long legs in black overalls, white and moist hands hanging on the side, black thick-lined sweater, distinct apple knot, gentle chin line, slightly cold lip line, cold white the bridge of the nose is high, and then the cold eyebrows that are too familiar. These eyes were deep and black, like warm spring water and cold snow in deep winter. At this moment, they looked at Zhao Yunqing quietly against the light. For a moment, Zhao Yunqing's heartbeat seemed to miss another beat. Back to the way she was when she first saw her in her previous life, the boy who attracted all her eyes, and the self who was full of his eyes. But in the next second, Zhao Yunqing beat himself back to reality fiercely. "Fill up the huge pit in your mind quickly, and then return to the problem itself." She frowned, wanting to say why you are here, and she felt that she should ask why you were, but her thoughts were not clear. Another voice came first. "What's the matter? Don't go for a walk anymore." Sun Lu stepped away, and Lu Saiqi's slender figure appeared. She was taken aback when she saw Zhao Yunqing, and then smiled softly. "Drink up, I will disturb you more in the future." Zhao Yunqing had a very good impression of Lu Saiqi. Whether in the previous life or in this life, she subconsciously did not dare to be presumptuous when faced with this gentle woman. "I was prepared to dismount the horse, and immediately converged, stood obediently, and said, "Hello, Auntie." Sun Lu, who was going for a walk, didn't leave, and the group returned to the living room. "I didn't expect it to be these two." Zhao Zhengyang didn't say anything wrong, and he knew each other, not only in the same grade, but also in the same class. It's just that Lao Zhao didn't give a letter in advance. After all, he had seen him in the mall, right? Later, Zhao Zhengyang explained that he was only thinking about Lu Saiqi, and forgot everything else. Zhao Yinqing was sitting down on the sofa properly. Zhao Zhengyang gave an introduction in the same way, and briefly talked about each other's situation by the way. "Yinqing has poor academic performance. It will be convenient in the future. If you don't understand, you can ask right away. This is a ready-made teacher." Zhao Zhengyang turned to Sun Lu again. "It means Sun Lu is more tired." "It's okay," he said, his tone particularly calm. Zhao Zhengyang is used to socializing in business, and he will not feel embarrassed when facing a small iceberg. Although the other party responds with a word or two, the strange thing is that the communication is also very natural and smooth. Zhao Yinqing deliberately observed Sun Lu's face, and found that the expression on this person's face didn't mean to force it. "When we first arrived, we were not very familiar with each other. After a little chat, they left each other." The Zhao family's father and daughter's bedroom was on the second floor. For the convenience of each other, Sun Lu and Lu Saiqi lived on the third floor. Zhao Yun came out of the shower after washing and sat down at the desk, thinking of memorizing the text, but what happened tonight was so unbelievable that he couldn't calm down for a while. After sitting for a while, she got up and went out. Zhao Zhengyang has already left. Because of his busy work, he has also set up an apartment near the unit. He often lives there, but he will leave tonight, probably to make the two mothers and children more comfortable. Aunt Zhang, the babysitter, is a native of the province, and can go back to reunion at this time of the spring festival every year. The spring breaks Zhao Zhengyang gave her are very long every time, so she hasn't come back yet. The whole villa, this would be the three of them. Zhao Yinqing walked to the kitchen with wet hair, began to search the refrigerator, and ate some snacks in the evening, which would be hungry. However, in the half-month since the nanny left, the house has not been fired, and there is very little food to eat. 1 bag of udon noodles, 2 eggs, and half a box of instant noodles are all. Zhao Yin cleared the udon noodles and put them in the water to boil, then took apart a bag of instant noodles and took away all the seasoning packets. Finally, when the water boiled, he was about to beat 2 eggs in. She waited with her hands on the kitchen counter. As soon as the water was running, she heard footsteps. Zhao Yinqing immediately turned his head and met Sun Lu's eyes. This one had obviously washed and changed into hidden blue home clothes. I don't know if it was because of the change of dress, or the environment, or the mood of each other, Sun Lu's breath of alienation became much lighter. "I'll find water to drink," he said. "Zhao Yinqing, cold water and hot water. Anything." Zhao Yinqing pointed to the cabinet next to the refrigerator, and said, "The mineral water is in it, and the hot water needs to be boiled." Sun Lu opened the cabinet, took a bottle out, unscrewed it and took a few sips, then looked at Zhao Yinqing. She was wearing a pink nightdress with a pattern of small cherry on it, a pair of plush slippers of the same color on her feet, and her exposed calves were white and thin. Her long hair was drenched on the back of her head, and her clothes were printed on it. The beach is stained with water, and the eyes on the slap face will look bigger, rounder, and more innocent than usual, and a lovely and well-behaved aura will come to your face. Sun Lu didn't provoke her in the impression, so he couldn't understand why this person was slightly hostile to himself in the few contacts. More inquiry than curiosity. For this reason, when Lu Saiqi told Zhao Zhengyang that he wanted to help them, he almost agreed without hesitation. Rarely tasted a fresh and novel taste. I wanted to see how this person would react when he saw him, but it was nothing more than that when he really saw him today. Aside from being a little dazed at first, he quickly accepted the reality. Too calm, somewhat disappointed. When the water boiled, Zhao Yunqing was about to beat 2 eggs in, but Sun Lu had no intention of leaving. She said casually, "Do you want to eat? Enough amount. You can throw in instant noodles." Sun Lu nodded. On the first night together, the two finished a pot of noodles together face to face. This situation should be something that no one expected, after all, it is too harmonious. Compared to his previous life, Sun Lu in this meeting was so easy to get along with, so it seems that at that time he hated himself so much that he would hate him so much until he died? How much trouble does my enthusiasm cause to people, so that I feel luxurious at a glance? Zhao Yunqing couldn't help silently mourning for himself at that time in his heart, and the look in Sun Lishi's eyes became calmer and calmer again. Sun Lu cleaned up the pots and bowls after eating, and Zhao Yunqing didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Ordinary office workers start to work after the Spring Festival, and Lu Siki is no exception. There is a bus stop 1 kilometer away, and there are direct vehicles. She got up early and prepared to go out after breakfast for the 2 children. "I'm too late to buy groceries. You guys will go together later. He can basically do what you want to eat," Lu Siki said while putting on his shoes. Zhao Yunqing shook his head subconsciously and said, "No, I just need to go out to eat at noon. It's not good to eat out all the time, let alone the house is not clean." Zhao Yunqing insisted, "It's okay, I'm used to it." Lu Siki turned to look at her and said, "Does it make you inconvenient for us to live here?" Zhao Yunqing was taken aback, then shook his head, No. Your father is unwilling to collect rent. Now if you are so dismissive, then how can we feel embarrassed to live?" Lu Siki smiled helplessly. Zhao Yunqing murmured, "This is not an outsider." After Lu Siki left completely, the room was quiet for a while. Sun Lu took the lead to turn around and go to the restaurant for breakfast. The cooked egg fried rice has a golden color, a little scent of green onions, and a small bowl on the side contains seaweed soup. It's been a long time since Zhao Yunqing had eaten a breakfast with a smoky flavor like this. When the nanny was there, most of the sandwiches were heated with milk. "Where is the vegetable market here?" Sun Lu asked her during the meal. Zhao Yunqing said, "The vegetable market is far away, but there are supermarkets nearby." "Well, after eating, can I take a car?" "No need to." Sun Lu stopped and wiped his mouth with a tissue. He wore a dark green sweater today, which was made of mohair, soft and waxy, and it seemed a little softer in the past. Zhao Yunqing accelerated his eating speed. "No hurry, take your time," he said. Zhao Yun nodded and kept moving. Almost his entire face is buried in a big bowl, his cheeks are bulging, and the food is very imageless. Sun Lu just glanced at her briefly, then turned away. This time, Zhao Yunqing cleaned up the dishes and chopsticks. The two went back to the room and took their coats, and then went out together. The sun was shining brightly and the northwest wind was whistling, walking on the side of the road, still bitingly cold. Today, Zhao Yunqing tied his hair into 2 bundles and hung it on his shoulders obediently. However, when the wind blew, he still brought up the ends of the hair and rubbed his cheeks, making it itchy and uncomfortable. Zhao Yunqing pulled up his coat and hat and put it on his head. The 2 strands of black hair were firmly suppressed, and his vision was much cleaner. Violet cotton jacket, black skinny jeans, the trouser legs are well received into the short boots, the legs are straight and beautiful. Sun Lu stopped walking, bypassed her, and walked to the outside. "Go in." Zhao Yunqing turned his head to look at him. Because of the cold weather, there was still a white mist coming out when he breathed, and the tip of his pretty nose was a little scarlet. His expression was cold, as if he was not what he was talking about. The vehicles on the side of the road whizzed by from time to time, and Zhao Yunqing moved a little to the side. It took about 10 minutes to get to the supermarket here, and the two reached their destination without a word. In the morning, the fresh food area is crowded with people, and the auntie guards the spot and rushes in every day. Sun Lu carried a basket and followed Zhao Yunqing, occasionally raising his head to look at the densely packed heads in front of him. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand to grab Zhao Yunqing, and towards the back, Zhao Yunqing's back inevitably hit his chest. The tally clerk swayed past them, pushing the almost full shopping cart. Zhao Yunqing quickly stood up straight, and Sun Lu let go. Are there any taboos? No. Sun Lu stood in front of the water tank picking up hairy crabs, and then said, report a few dishes, otherwise I don't know what to buy. Do you really know how to do everything? Sun Lu, let's talk about it. In the last life, Zhao Yunqing had never seen Sun Lu cook, let alone eat. She once thought that this man was just like herself, almost belonging to the same category as her own. Zhao Yunqing lowered his head for a moment and said, is the corn rib soup okay? Okay. Broiled chicken wings. It is good. Stir-fried raw beef with garlic. Sun Lu handed the selected hairy crabs to the staff to weigh and pack, and said, what else? It's almost enough for 2 people. It's almost the same, then that's it. Sun Lu put the loaded hairy crabs into the basket and turned to look at her. Zhao Yunqing nodded. They strolled around in the fresh food area, and Zhao Yunqing saw Liang Pi greedy and bought a copy. When queuing to check out, Sun Lu said, Long Pi eat in the afternoon or evening. I'll eat as soon as I go back. Zhao Yunqing said. What will you eat after lunch? Then either don't make lunch, I will go out after I eat Liang Pi. Sun Lu turned his eyes quickly, with a noticeable coolness. Do you play with me? He said. Going out in the morning to buy vegetables, she picked up everything she likes, and ended up not eating it. It was a waste of his time and energy. Zhao Yunqing took a step back as he stared at him, and put his lips together without saying a word. Liang Pi finally entered the refrigerator obediently, and Zhao Yunqing finally ate at home. Speaking with conscience, Sun Lu's dishes are indeed good. Zhao Yunqing ate 2 bowls in a complicated mood, and then went out. She couldn't stay alone in the same space with Sun Lu all the time. She couldn't stand it for a while, and she really couldn't let her go so quickly. It was already easy for her to spend a long time going out. As for what Sun Lu was doing this afternoon, Zhao Yunqing didn't know what he was doing, and he didn't have the desire to understand. A few days later, some morning before the start of school, Sun Lu received a call, and the cold frost on his face suddenly melted at this moment, and the shallow tenderness seeped out, and the deep and beautiful eyes were full of warmth. Zhao Yunqing turned his head and looked out the window. The old autumn leaves had not yet been removed, but the dry tree trunks had grown new shoots. The male voice, as low as a stream of water, sang out. Today can. I'll post you later, not far. Well, yes, well, that's it. Sun Lu hung up the phone, and then looked at Zhao Yunqing, with a slightly cold gaze in the past, which would obviously be a bit unnatural. Before he said anything, Zhao Yunqing spoke first and said, Are any friends coming? Sun Lu nodded with an I have an appointment with Do Na to watch a movie, and I'm about to leave. Have a lot of fun with you. Zhao Yunqing got up and went upstairs, changed his clothes, and ran down again. Sun Lu was still standing where she was, looking up at her. This one is rarely seen today wearing a black ruffled short skirt and a short woolen coat of the same color. His thin and straight legs are wrapped in leggings, a burgundy scarf and a beret, and half of his face is buried in the scarf. The exposed eyes are lingering, a youthful and playful look. Isn't it cold? Sun Lu glanced at her legs. Zhao Yunqing didn't know how to teach him science. The thick leggings actually kept warmer than usual pants. It's fine, she said. Zhao Yunqing went to the door to change his shoes, and Sun Lu followed. I will send you a message when someone is gone. No, I'll be back later. Zhao Yunqing put on short boots, stood up and moved his feet, turned to look at him, and smiled, "You are free."